Well, somehow we're both actually here. So,
Mine's more of a fluke.
yours is more of a what?
It's a fluke.
Yes,
I
it
actually
totally.
didn't know what time the stream was taking place. And then I get a phone call that's like, hey, are you coming? And I'm like, wait, till what? Because someone didn't tell me the stream start time.
Oops. Whoops. Yeah. My bad. I scheduled something and then I left and went and did other things and just kind of assumed. I mean, I guess it maybe that's it. It's operational jealousy because I spend enough time with you, Vish, and with Dapper, and I get jealous about how you guys share a brain, and
It's true.
it always seems to be working, and then I don't. So so that's no. I just have no good excuse. I'm sorry.
Clearly, the very,
So
very scientific answer is that you're not an air sign, which is why you don't share in the hive mind.
sounds good to me. I'm happy to take your word on that. So I have no idea what any of that means.
You're a Taurus.
So,
That's an earth sign.
oh, that's
So
right.
you're
We have talked about some of this before.
grounded and practical and foodie, or in your case, scotchy.
Ooh, foodie though,
Mm-hmm.
too, as in likes food, explores food, those sorts of things. Because
Explores
I
food,
feel like it.
enjoys the
Yeah,
tactile sensation of eating. It's rewarding more than just for nourishment. It's something
yeah,
you
me totally,
lots of pleasure in.
100%, 100% me. I love it. I love all of that. So yeah. So here we are.
Like I
It's
said, very
Friday.
scientific.
Very scientific.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're right, you're right. So, it's Friday, the 19th of September. It's fall, I think. Very close,
Not where I live.
right? It was cool at 11 o'clock this morning when I was in the forest. I almost felt like I needed a jacket today. There's some leaves browning and appearing on the ground. So it's
Yeah,
I
well,
think
shut
it's
up because it's hot and humid here and I
oh,
don't like it.
sorry about that. But not all of us can live in the best place on earth. So that's
That's true.
sad, and it's
There are
unfortunate,
moments of temporary inconvenience.
right? Yes. So yes, welcome everyone to my channel. I'm Kip Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in um I'm a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls. I had a moment there. So and this is my very capable producer Vish, and it's Friday, September the 19th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific Coast, where all the cool people live. But sorry guys, sorry, nerds who don't live out here with the rest of us. But yeah, so it's good to see a bunch of you here as usual. Prixie is excited, and no, I think we've decided this is no way Yahweh.
Way.
No, do it again.
Way.
There we go. I like it. So, good to see you, whoever you are. And Lil of all trades is here. Jason Rollins has a question already. Do you guys already have the book? No, I do not. I don't believe it's it's available to the public yet. And if you don't understand what's going on here, I shall explain it. Rion is here. By the way, I was on the Daily Atheist Morning Show yesterday, which it's
How's
very it's like at well, you were sleeping. It's like at 6 a.m. It's ridiculous. So,
Ugh.
and I'm usually up at that time anyway, so I figured, yeah, what the hell, right? But I had a lovely time. Ryan, sorry, I keep messing that up. Ryan and I had a terrific conversation, and Chris played around in the chat, and it was pretty great. So go check that out, everyone. And John is here. John was actually first in the chat today. The Dalai Lama is here. Kyudo, I don't think I recognize you. But welcome.
Actually, I had an argument with someone about Carrier's book. Bring it back.
Back? Okay. Actually, I had an
I
argument
can't find what group is supposed to have peer-reviewed the book anywhere. Well,
so no, I mean those sorts of things aren't really public. So
yeah.
Simone is here. Good to see you. And I saw him. Well, Miranda is here. Kind of jealous of Carrier, actually. How awesome would it be to have a job where you can claim that getting it completely wrong really means you're totally right? Yeah,
I didn't pass peer review, which means I actually passed peer review.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sure, that's definitely how that works.
Cuneiform guy is here. Put Dagon the Abomination on the task. He'll get you moving. He's looking forlornly out the open window right now. So, but yeah, Holly is here, and there's a couple others I noticed. Jimmy Berman is here. Big Zebra is here. I saw Lawrence here at one point. So, oh yeah, there we are. Lawrence is now, if you don't know, and if you're confused, the Milwaukee Atheists has rebranded to the Behold Network. So, welcome, Lawrence. We need to sit down and read some more Greek because that was fun, and I don't usually do it. So, Claude Simeon is here. Nice.
Yeah,
wow.
It rained yesterday, so we're still having the Florida-esque weather, which I don't like.
No, well, that sounds bad. So nice. All right. Well, so I'll give you a rundown of what I wanted to do today. So there was we read and laughed about Richard Carrier's blog post 2 weeks ago, in which he claimed somehow to have passed peer review by failing peer review, which is absurd. And then he went on Mythvision Podcast to talk about the new book and to just air his grievances in real time with a panel of people. But in the course of this, I watched a little bit of that, and I thought it was useful to maybe spend a bit of time as somebody who has undergone peer review and as somebody who has worked as a peer reviewer, to just kind of go through some of how this works and what this means. And I have some questions too, in particular, with respect to Richard's particular case that I wanted to bring up, just based on some of the comments that he's made. Because I mean, there's some pretty serious charges out there that an entire publisher is essentially operating under a fraudulent premise of peer review, that the peer reviewers themselves are operating in bad faith. It's it's a lot, right? So
are you sure we're talking about like someone who's not a young earth creationist? Like, because this is exactly the kind of crap that they say on a regular basis.
I know.
There's discrimination. There's people.
So, Prixie, you don't need to watch it, because I pulled a couple of relevant clips that I think are useful for entering this conversation. Yeah, that's the guy.
Thanks,
Richard
Doc.
Carrier sued Free Thought Blogs after they banned him for sexually harassing a bunch of people.
And he's not shy about saying that he did that, by the way. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you don't have to be a sex pest. Just saying. Like, that's a thing you can just not do.
It's possible. It's possible.
In addition to like not bragging about it. That's also
do that. Yeah, it's true.
a choice you can make.
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll look at a couple of clips. I don't have any slides today. Oh, if that's one other thing that you can add to your internet browser there, Vish, is if you could pull up Safaria. Because we'll take a look. We'll take a look at and specifically we'll take a look at Talmud Bavli. What is it? Sanhedrin 98b.
Excellent.
So yes. So I mean we'll look at a couple of things. I don't have any slides. I'll mostly just kind of talk through a bunch of this stuff. It's yeah, it like this is it's interesting to me. I think just because of in this public space, lots of people talk about peer review, the importance of peer review. We set a high value on peer-reviewed scholarship when we have some of these conversations on YouTube. But sometimes I think that maybe people don't always understand exactly what's going on in the process, and in particular when it comes to some of Richard Carrier's complaints about what he endured in the peer review process for his latest book. I thought, perhaps some added context, perhaps another voice to can provide some what's the word I'm looking for here? Maybe some more nuance to what's actually happening. And to be clear, right at the outset, the only information we have about what happened, just to kind of catch everyone up, Richard Carrier submitted a manuscript to a biblical studies press for publication. It went to peer reviewers. I believe there were 2, and they flatly rejected it. And he has come out and complained that their reviews, their reports don't provide any legitimate basis for rejecting his manuscript. So he feels as though he's being unfairly maligned by this. He's gone ahead and just submitted and published the book with a another publisher, Sans peer review. So it's available with
it's not
now.
like an academic publisher.
No.
Interesting.
No, it's
Well,
not. So it's and yeah, and this is kind of part of the problem here too, right? I'm a little skeptical when it comes to
I'm a lot skeptical.
Carrier's narration of events. So what we do know is just basically what he's disclosed to us. So I thought we could go through a little bit of that and just see where this goes. So if you want to bring up the video, I've got, how many do I have here? I have I think 7 or 8 clips. So in the first one here, he is just explaining sort of the contents of the book, the new book that he's published, and what it's essentially about, what's going on in it.
Okay.
The goal of it is to catch you up on what's happened in the last 10 years. It is not a book that relitigates the argument on the historicity of Jesus, really. I mean, it does that in points, but it's not really the whole study. You've got to go to the original study. The first chapter, obviously, just an introduction and goes over what's been going on in the last 10 years, what's this book about, etc. The second chapter, largely what that does is, for people who are aware of the original study, I had chapter 4 and 5 of the original study were all on background evidence. There were like 48 numbered background points, and there are more background points throughout the first 7 chapters. And so chapter 2 is basically, where has scholarship gone on those things? Like, has anybody since then, like, has anything changed with regard to those background facts? Have any of them gotten overthrown? The answer is no. Like, there's been no, like, all of them hold up. They're either the same status that they were when I published.
Can you pause it there for a second, maybe?
And, really.
Because so this is the table of contents for his book, and if you caught it, chapter 2, he says, is sort of concentrated on the background knowledge section of his original study, which was published in 2012, and it was that's where I focus most of my attention, because that's really the part of this discussion that I know. This is the background knowledge section of Carrier's work are pieces that he posits should be in place in order to make his model for a mythical Jesus work. In so doing, he spends a lot of time delving into topics of Second Temple Judaism, early Judaism. He touches on and deals with manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls, other Jewish literature. This is sort of the part of his book that has this is the part that I'm really keenly interested in, because he's effectively negotiating with ideas about what early Judaism looked like. So if you caught it, what he's talking about here is in the new book, in his second chapter, he's providing updates. He's discussing what sort of developments have occurred with respect to his points of background knowledge, and whether or not any of those have challenged his overall thesis. And according to him, he has passed with flying colors. Nothing's changed. In fact, things have moved more in the direction of supporting his theory and his hypothesis. Again, haven't read the book. Don't know what that means. However, I do know. Maybe just let him finish up, and I'll talk about no background fact has changed. The idea that there was a savior angel called Jesus rising is in the background facts. And that hasn't, I mean, the background knowledge on that too, Simone, hasn't changed. He's right about that, because he was wrong about it in the first place. There's just no scholarship that supports his position about the angel, the angel called Jesus, in early Judaism. So
I'm also really not loving this. Why historians simply must learn math, buddy. I know this is just like my own personal take. But history, actually, you don't need to learn math. The whole Bayesian whatever thing that people are so popular, are so used to using, that's not going to actually tell you whether stuff happened or didn't. It will get you a calculated probability. But again, that doesn't actually have anything to do with what's physically in the ground or in the, recovered artifacts or literature or any of that stuff. So I get really frustrated when people start getting into the weeds on math and probability and whatever Bayesian frameworks they're using. I'm like, okay, but do we actually have tangible evidence of what they're claiming?
So, as we know, first of all, I'd like to say it's good to see Dr. J. Bundy is in the house for a live.
Right on.
And I'd like to say, as we all know, I am famously very, very good at math. We all know this. We are all keenly aware of this. I'm going to say now, this is absolutely not my strong suit. And as someone who works regularly in historical disciplines. I've read a little bit. I've encountered Bayesian models applied to history. I can see their usefulness to a point in terms of it seems to me that they function like good checks on kind of cutting through maybe some of our own blinders and biases.
I mean, look, not-
However,
I'm not claiming it's useless. I'm not claiming
yeah.
it's worthless. I'm not claiming don't use it. Like, it's not something that I think you can apply to history in the same sort of way that, like, the hard sciences will use their predictive models to go and narrow down, like, say, a geographical area for a period of time in a fossil that may or hopefully be there where we expect to find it, and then they go digging and they're like, oh shit, there's the fossil we expected to be there. Yay! If Bayesian, like, models have a really good success rate with that kind of thing where they go, oh, probability of this thing happening, we narrow it down to a place, we find corroborating evidence, I'd be like, sweet. But I mean, so far it's
So yeah, and I think Simone makes an excellent point here. Bayes' theorem is a rubric, the validity of which is entirely dependent on the quality of the data that is put into it and its interpretation. One of the big problems with it, when I went on my holiday, I put it's a 6.5 hour drive for me, and I put the video, the Apology published a couple weeks ago with Brian Blaze, where an actual statistician who has written and published about Bayes' theorem in addressing a blog post that was written by Than Christopoulos, who has attempted to use Bayesian reasoning to argue for the historicity of the resurrection. And I put that on repeat. I think I listened to it 5 or 6 times over the course of my drive there and back.
You're not
really
looking
dense
at the slides. Yeah.
But also really helpful. And like one of the things that comes through pretty clearly in the way that Brian Blaze explains it is you get a strong sense for how many hypothetical numbers you have to essentially provide in order to make your models do something. Just because you're essentially attempting to quantify things that aren't readily
and that's
quantifiable,
part
right?
of
And that's
my major problems with it is putting those kind of quantifiers on it, on history, which we know is just preposterously complex. So many moving parts in any era. And to me, trying to narrow like the parameters on that just seems like a fool's errand. However, that's my personal take. I am not a degree historian, and I am certainly not a mathematician. So,
Lawrence points out here, I asked my logic professor who taught us Bayesian probability how useful it is in history, and he said it's best not to take that stuff too literally. So
exactly.
So and I think I mean I'm not gonna comment on it beyond the fact that it doesn't seem like the results are all that useful based on what I've looked at, but it's not. I just don't know, and
I just think it's not the right tool for the job. Like, it's a useful tool, just not for this particular job.
Maybe not. So yeah. So let's let him finish up here, and then I'll say a couple things. Oh, that was it.
Then the last chapters. I can breeze through this very easily. I just do the 3
pause
passages.
this.
Romans 1, 3, Galatians 4, 4.
This is the second. That's the second clip. So, so what I thought, I would do in terms of the the background knowledge, maybe just revisit a couple of the things. I made 3 videos addressing Richard Carrier's work in his chapter 4 and 5, I think, or chapter 5 and 6. And some of my critiques there, I thought I would just bring a few of those up. Again, he has said that this new book is not a relitigation of the old book, but he has also claimed that the old book still stands, on its own merits. And I continue to maintain I really don't think it does. I think there are fatal problems within it that have been pointed out by a number of scholars now and a number of lay people who have looked and worked through some of Richard's arguments and pretty effectively shown where there are some of these substantial problems. So my whole thing is early Judaism. My whole approach to this text is how well is it using the information that we have about early Judaism? How well is it reading through the literature, early Jewish literature, the primary source material, as well as the scholarship on early Jewish literature, in order to establish his case about there potentially being a mythical Jesus in the invention of Christianity. I'll remind you a couple of the things that I keyed in on my video series. I think there's an issue in the way that Richard defines terms and uses terms when making his case, in particular when it comes to trying to understand a period of time and a place, such as Roman Palestine in the Second Temple period. His definition for things like Messiah or crucifixion or gospel, I've keyed in on as potentially problematic. Just to give you, so here is his definition of Messiah according to On the Historicity of Jesus, published in 2012. I shall mean by Messiah the Hebrew word of which Christ is a translation. Any man in fact, myth, or prophecy who is, first, anointed by the Hebrew God to, second, play a part in God's plan to liberate his chosen people from their oppressors, and third, to restore or institute God's true religion. This means anointed in any sense then understood, literally, figuratively, cosmically, or symbolically. And I'm not even sure what some of that would look like. Cosmic anointing is not something that I'm particularly familiar with. Liberate in any sense then claimed, physically or spiritually. Oppressors in any sense then identified, whoever or whatever they may be. And religion in the fullest sense, cult, mores, sacred knowledge, and the resulting social order. And I specify only play a part, not necessarily bring to fruition. He finishes this paragraph by saying all Jewish kings and high priests were, of course, messiahs, in the basic sense of being anointed to represent God. But here I shall mean a Messiah conforming to A through C, yet I do not assume that there must be only one Messiah of that kind. Neither did the Jews. See scholarship cited in elements 3 and 4. So one of the things, I just think that a definition like this for a project like this is just far too broad. In approaching early Judaism, and in particular, when you're trying to work through a language, one of the things that you discover is that the meanings of words will change over time. There is no exception here with a word like Mashiach in Hebrew, which in the Hebrew Bible just meant anointed, and was applied to priests and to kings. One of the things that I pointed out in my critique of Carrier's work is that in the critical period, in the period of time at which he's attempting to establish this kind of stuff, the word Mashiach itself has a particular meaning. It has particular usages within the literature that like the literature that we have in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is, you know, where most of our source material is. By and large, it seems generally to be used to identify the former prophets. The former prophets were the anointed ones of Yahweh. They were the anointed ones of God. They were frequently identified in these terms throughout the literature. Does that conform to Carrier's very broad definition? I don't think in a helpful way. If this project is actually, and this was part of my critique originally, if this project is really looking to see and to understand what messianic figures were, you know, at this pivotal time in the 1st century BC, 1st century CE, then we should be paying close attention to how people are using these particular words in these particular terms. Now, that's not to say that there weren't expectations for a Messiah at this period of time that extended beyond that, but that's not a terminological discussion at that point, and it again is much more. It's not as clearly obvious from the literature that we have in the period that anyone was looking for all these different types of messiahs that Carrier has included in his definition. And I'll repeat it again. I have no idea what cosmically anointed means.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, what does that mean?
And it's never clearly fleshed out anywhere, as near as I can tell.
Because from what I remember, kings were actually physically anointed with oil.
Yep.
By someone, maybe a priest, could be a prophet, you know, depends. Prophets apparently were also anointed, so it's like these were actual like physical acts. What does it mean to be cosmically anointed? Who did the anointing and how?
So I think, and I think maybe this kind of gets to the problem, the diachronic issues of this sort of approach, because this word came to take on all these characteristics of you know, the Jewish Messiah, who was originally, you know, just an ordinary guy who was going to come and defeat the Romans, but over time and through a variety of circumstances in, you know, the 1st and 2nd century CE, came to take on this much more cosmic sort of these sort of cosmic God-like characteristics. I think at that point you're sort of projecting backwards. This is a good way to show how a term like that, Mashiach, at a later point in time came to mean those things, include those things, but in the time under, you know, the texts in which we're considering, these all have to be pre-Christian texts. The word just doesn't mean that, like, anywhere, right? And I continue to think that's a problem. So so that's just an example. I had issues also with how broadly he would choose to define things like crucifixion, things like gospel. You know, in many respects, I'll just say again, when you're looking at a corpus of literature like the Dead Sea Scrolls, you have to take into consideration what these words mean within this body of texts, right? And how they're used. And if you're not doing that, then you're prone to misreading the literature itself in light of other things that you think it means, or that maybe other groups use these terms to mean. So that's important. So now I think it's useful. Maybe just take it down for a second, and I'll bring this up. It's useful because I spend so much time there, and a Carrier actually also spends so much time there. I think it's useful to take a look at. Let's go window entire. Oh, I can only do entire screen. Okay. Oh well, that's fine. I will share my entire screen. So it's useful to look at his background.
That's my screen.
It is your screen. Why am I on Discord? There we go. Can you see it? Are we still
No,
sharing
I have
yours?
to take.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Oh yes, that's
There you
right.
go.
You
You
have to
just
take
click on it. Yeah, there you go.
I'm a professional. That's right. That's why it
It's
looked
okay.
weird to me. Okay.
While
I
you
can do
fuss
this.
with this, I need
What the
more
hell am I doing?
very cold water because it is extremely
Okay.
uncomfortable today. So I'm just gonna go
Stop
grab some more
screen. So,
water.
oh yeah, that's what I have to do. I have to stop yours first, then I
You
share
don't have
mine.
to stop mine. You can just put it up
Don't
on the
I?
stage.
Oh,
No,
well, it didn't. Oh, sorry.
I literally put it up on
Fine.
the stage and then you took it back down to stop.
Well, it's because I'm putting mine up. Okay. So
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. You just share yours and then we put it right there
yes,
on the stage.
there.
There you go. See?
Ta-da! There we go.
Ba-bam.
Yeah. So
Local
let's
millennial helps Gen Xer do streaming.
shut up. I am not a Gen Xer. Wait,
Yeah,
no, I
you
am a
are.
Gen Xer. Shut up. I'm
You are a
sorry.
Gen Xer.
I am. You're right. Now I'm all flustered now because in my head all I think of
Is boomer.
is boomer. So
Okay.
because
you're boomer coded in some ways, but you're very solidly Gen X.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So all right.
Mhm.
So here is I tried to make it reasonably embiggened. Element 5 begins in the middle of the second column there. So this is the probably, I think, the sort of the linchpin background element out of all 48 of those that Carrier pointed to, that on which this case really stands or falls. Element 5. Even before Christianity arose, some Jews expected one of their messiahs, heralding the end times, would actually be killed rather than be immediately victorious, and this would mark the key point of a timetable, guaranteeing the end of the world soon thereafter. Such a concept was therefore not a Christian novelty, wholly against the grain of Jewish thinking, but already exactly what some Jews were thinking or could easily have thought. And he
Hang on a
is
sec.
correct to point out, let me just finish this. He's correct to point out that this is the most controversial element in our background knowledge. Many scholars being so intent on deny it. And then he goes and provides quite a lengthy discussion of this. So yes, go ahead, Vish.
And of course, you wait until I start actually eating my snack.
Damn it. Sorry.
If anyone's wondering, it's the Brookside dark chocolate with fruit.
Oh,
so
those
we're
are
not sponsored, but if they want to,
good.
hit us up. Yeah, they are. I wanted pomegranate, but they were out, so it's fine. I'll take blueberry and I'll tell you. My issue with part of this is he is trying to really hedge his bets here, where he says such a concept was not a Christian novelty, blah 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 blah. It says it wasn't against the grain of Jewish thinking, but exactly what some Jews were thinking or could have easily thought. Those are literally almost all of the options. It's not impossible.
I mean, that's
some
fair,
people
right?
are thinking it, but they also could think it. Like,
yeah.
What point are you making here, my guy? Like,
and I think this is really,
some people could think it. Some people could think a lot of things. Why isn't he making like more definitive statements? Because I'll answer what my intuition is telling me. my intuition, my gut feeling is he doesn't want to make it too narrow, because when somebody argues against him, if he gives you all these different options that he's thrown at the wall like spaghetti, he'll just be like, yeah, well, I didn't say that, and then he'll appeal to the other two things that he left open. That's slippery. I don't think that's good scholarship. So
it is. It's and this is I think yeah, the weakness here is that there's a lot of ambiguity in some of the sources that we have at our disposal, to the point where virtually all scholars are extremely cautious in evaluating this point. Yes, there is a lot of scholars who will say it seems like this could have been a thing. We have some of these texts which look like they potentially could point in this direction of certainly a suffering Messiah. Very, very few will actually go as far as to say a dying Messiah. But they'll kind of end there, and they'll say they will come back and they'll say it just, we just don't have concrete enough data to demonstrate this. And I think that's a big part of the problem here is in taking as a given, I'll say, something that is floating around on the margins, is fragmentary, is not by a long shot not universally agreed upon by scholars, is up for ongoing constant scholarly debate and dispute. It's a lot to be hedging your bets on. So now a couple of the more specific things that I was critical of Carrier for, and which I think continue to stand, are that throughout his book, one of the things that continue to frustrate me when I write, and when I publish, and when I am discussing ancient texts, I am pretty regularly citing my sources. And what I mean by that is not just referencing my sources. I'm actually quoting texts. And I'm quite often, if it's a language that I know, and if it's Jewish literature, I'm translating it myself, and then I'm pointing out to the reader places in my translation which are debatable, which are matters of contention among scholars, and explain the reasons why I've translated a text the way I have. There's none of that in Carrier's book. Where Carrier references Jewish texts, he summarizes them and never actually quotes anything
poorly,
and this creates significant issues. Yes. For example, I'll just continue to read here, and then you've got Babylonian Talmud.
Yeah, I got the folio pulled up.
So here's what he says. The Talmud provides us with a proof of concept at the very least, and actual confirmation at the very most. It explicitly says the suffering servant who dies in Isaiah 53 is the Messiah, and that this Messiah will endure great suffering before his death. And the one reference for that is Babylonian Talmud Sanhedrin, 98b and 93b. So I think I'm going to bring this down. You've got it there, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
I'll just put you on stage.
Stop. No. Let me embiggen the text.
Yes. Let's see if we can get to it's okay. You probably have to scroll down.
Arabic the thing.
They
seem like I should scroll up. Listen, cause me to contradiction with you will keep you. They're talking about their response to whenever Mashiach comes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, for people who aren't familiar with the Talmud, let me just clue you in really quick. The text on the left is what's actually written on the page. If you were to go like read the original manuscripts, that's corresponding to the bold text. And you're probably like, oh, well, that's really terse, and those are sentence fragments. Yes, exactly. This is not the easiest text to study and read. So
sure isn't.
what most translators and students and whatever will do is they have the, as here, non-bold text to kind of fill in what is essentially shorthand for discussions that are going on. So yeah, that it really, it's not something you just learn how to do in an afternoon. It takes a lot of learning about vocabulary, about the way they have shorthand, about the different discussions and the ways that they were thinking and all the other stuff that's going on. So yeah, you don't just sit down and read the Talmud. Like, wow. Okay. Rachel, okay, I remember this part. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, he's already come. He came in this age. He's not going to come again. And then someone else is like, no, he came in this other age, and he's not going to do that again. Da, 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 da. So they start arguing about that. Yeah, he just cites the whole folio. That's a whole ass page.
Yeah, I know. It's as soon as I see it, or you know what? That's the other thing. If we're gonna struggle to find it, I could just read it myself.
I mean,
my
if you
notes
just get
here, but
subverse or something.
I don't have it. Like I
Oh,
I didn't. I'm sorry.
yeah, here we go. See,
also,
because Hillel said there's no Messiah. Like we already
yeah.
got that during Hezekiah's days.
So
yeah, I remember this.
Just a second. I'm gonna let my dog out. Oh, here we go. There it is.
Wait,
it starts at what is his name? Right here.
Oh,
here
okay.
we go.
So apropos the Messiah. So Mashmo. Okay. So the Gemara is asking what the name of the Messiah is. Shiloh is his name. They quote Genesis 49. Yinon, may his name endure forever. So continues Yinon. It's like rabbis love wordplay, by the way. Hanina says
this whole thing is about.
Hanina's his name. Well, isn't that convenient? I'll show you no favor. Hanina. Yeah. Some say Menachem ben Hezekiah is his name because the comforter Menachem, again, wordplay. The leper of the house of Rabbi. So yeah, Yehuda Hanasi, the prince of the assembly. Our illnesses he bared and our pains he endured, yet we did esteem it. Okay, so the rabbis say the name of the Messiah, the leper of the house of Rabbi Yehuda.
Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, yes.
And they're specifically talking about a rabbi that lived after Jesus of Nazareth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not talking about Jesus. And they say, this is a leper of his house, and then they quote Isaiah 53.
Yeah.
So this is an open discussion. They do not actually land on, yes, it's definitely this one. These are all rabbis throwing their ideas out. That's another thing about Talmud, is when they bring up a conversation topic, it is very rarely resolved. And I mean very rarely resolved before they're off on a rabbit trail onto like some other topic. So
Yep.
Okay.
So and there's it's so yeah, I mean he's really keyed in on the fact that this passage comes from Isaiah 53 from
they quoted Isaiah 53. Therefore, the Christian interpretation that this is about the suffering Messiah is the thing that the Jews were thinking, like
yeah. So and Simone brings up this very important point here too. When it comes to, and everyone should go and look at Simone's Substack. Is it a Substack or is it a?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a Substack. It's excellent. And she goes through in painstaking detail to explain how to do historical critical study of the Talmud. And the point that she's making here is that in understanding these texts, the earliest layer of rabbinic Jewish interpretive material is in the Mishnah, which was compiled sometime after the 2nd century, or late 2nd, early 3rd century. then there's some slightly later texts like the Tosefta, some of the Midrashim, and then in the 5th century you get the first of the Talmudim, which is the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud,
The Palestinian Talmud.
the Palestinian Talmud, yes, and written in the 5th century. Then in the 6th century, between the 6th to, I believe, the 8th century, you have the Babylonian Talmud, which is massive. It's gigantic. It's
48 volumes over
yeah,
20. Well, just counting the folios, it's 2,711.
yeah. So now what the Talmudim are commentaries on the Mishnah. So the Mishnah, compiled in the 2nd, 3rd century, is this collection, this repository of Jewish thought and writing. The Talmudim, written hundreds of years later, is commenting on that. They're pulling together a whole bunch of fragments and bits and pieces and traditions and sayings from hundreds of rabbis who had lived over the course of many centuries, and they're just kind of mashing them together in there. We know when a number of these figures have lived. For example, Judah Hanassi, who is mentioned here, was a rabbi of the 3rd century, 2nd, 3rd century. I think he was right at the end of the Tannaitic period. So this is this saying, it probably can't predate that, but as Simone points out here, when you're doing text critical, historical critical work in the Talmud, what you're also doing is you're looking at something like this in the Babylonian Talmud, and then you're comparing it to the Palestinian Talmud, which was written earlier, right? And what we discover when you do that is this isn't in there. It's not in the Palestinian Talmud. So we know that this is something that, it's not
later ideas.
It's even later, right? Like this is like 5th, 6th century stuff, compiled by the Stamaim. So throughout the Babylonian Talmud, where their individual rabbis are identified and attached to individual traditions, but then there are lots of places where the text will just speak as a voice all on its own. Scholars call this the stam. The stemaim are these verdicts that are brought down, and these are thought to be the editors of the Babylonian Talmud, who are saying this is our final thing. This is part of that, right? So how much?
I don't know.
What
You
sort
probably,
of historical evidence can you draw from this?
Some of these ideas are very late, very late. And as there was someone else in the chat that mentioned this, and I didn't highlight it, but they were like, "Wait, how is this evidence for something that happened pre-Jesus?"
Yeah, see, that's where now the way Carrier goes about and argues that is that there's just no way, because of how important Isaiah 53 and the idea of a dying Messiah was to Christianity. There's just no way that later Jewish communities would have promoted something that looked like or sounded anything like Christian belief, which sounds incredibly naive to me from a historian, from
definitely
a
not
professionally trained
accurate
historian. That's just not, and it's so not right. I mean, there was all sorts of cross pollination between rivals all the time in historical literature and tradition and such, right? So it's not a very good argument. Yes,
you probably noticed this when we were scrolling, but each rabbi has a name that is wordplay on what he thinks the Messiah's name is. So Rabbi Shelah says it's Shiloh.
Yeah.
It's like a word play. And then you have Yanai says it's Yinon. And it's like you get Hanan. Hanina's just like, yeah, no, his name's just straight up Hanina. Yeah, I have the name of the Messiah. He shares my name. And it just like you go down and I just, that kind of stuff is always
Yeah. No, it's
endlessly
and
amusing.
yeah, and I point this out too
love
in
it.
the video the video critique that I did, that the reason why they arrive on this idea that you know, the Messiah's name will be oh, where do they say it?
So like they have
Where they
Shiloh.
cite, no, go down to Judah Hanasi
Oh,
again.
and then
His
okay.
student, the leper. The reason they say it's the leper,
Yeah.
is because of this passage from Isaiah 53. Very importantly, indeed our illnesses, and that's the same word there that's used for leper. He
let me
did
scroll up.
bear,
Sit up.
which is the verb nasa,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was gonna say right there. Okay, Nasha. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and nasa was, and so this is, you know, this is the leper who was the student of Judah Hanasi, which is,
Yeah.
you know, also derivative of nasa. So it's yeah, it's not it's not a worthwhile citation. But what I really wanted to point out is how much Carrier's summary of this text just does not deal with what this text is actually doing or saying. And it
Yeah, and
sounds very
notice how
much,
they don't actually pick an answer. There's 4 options,
Yeah,
and then they're
exactly.
on to the next thing. Rav Nachman is talking about like, oh, well, if Messiah's among the living, such and such and such, and they're just off to the next thing. They did not resolve this. So there's like at least 2 positive seeming names or positive kind of qualities,
Yeah.
and then there's 2 negative ones. So what's Carrier doing
Exactly.
here?
So, you know, this is
That's
now
frustrating.
yeah, and but these are just some of the problems, right? The summaries of ancient texts without actually, you know, quoting them and working through them on a critical level is a serious problem. It's a major problem with the book. It's not just there. You know, he does the same thing with texts like in Wisdom of Solomon or in Zechariah 3 or in the Melchizedek scroll. Carrier's source for this Boyarin predicates his argument for this point on the Gospel of Mark's
On the
historicity.
Gospel of Mark's historicity.
Exactly. So
Tom Stark has
Professor
already
Tom
refuted
Stark,
Carrier on his extremism,
Tom
so
Stark
okay.
is not a professor, but has already refuted Carrier on his strongest piece of evidence regarding the existence of a dying Messiah idea previous to the emergence of Christianity. Yeah, he wrote some excellent blog articles about this way back in like 2010, I believe it was 2009, 2010. So that's true. Also,
the
the
next thing is
Hager
hagiography. That's not surprising to me.
So so and I didn't want to dwell on that so much. I just wanted to point out that these are issues in the original study, and unless these are issues that Carrier has corrected, there's still issues, and it kind of doesn't sound like he has, if he's coming forward and saying, well, you know, nothing in the background knowledge has been overturned, when in actual fact there are several elements and just small errors of you know, what's the word, I would call them errors of fact that that he's overlooking or he's skating past or legitimating on some spurious notions. So but let's bring the video back up, because what I really want to talk about is let's he's going to and maybe we'll skip the next section, and we'll go to 134. Because this is where he starts to talk about the peer review process for his book, and this is where I start to have some questions and some concerns. Well, beyond my original concerns.
Is my point. Everyone here on this panel has read the peer review reports and the book, and so that I'll just lead with this question: is like, does anybody have any examples of when the peer reviewers found any specific error of fact in the book?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's like an error of fact.
Yeah.
It seemed more like they just disagreed.
That's right. Yeah.
And therefore, I don't.
Derek's not qualified to determine if there are errors or not. Just putting that out there. So, Kip, what do you think about that?
No, I'm not going to comment. Just
fair enough.
Recommend this book because of rhetoric or because of it sounds like online debate stuff. Like and by the way, that tells me they know you from prior. That's why I think it's biased against you, because it's like, hold on, it's blog stuff?
I do think there's been an all hands on deck.
So now he's making a claim that they're biased again. Like, this is stuff you need evidence for. Just, oh well, they didn't like it, so they must be biased is probably not the strongest ground to put your feet on, but I'm not Derek.
Yep.
Movement behind the scenes to try and cancel me.
Yep.
Because when my first book came out,
Try and cancel him. Poor Richard Carrier. Poor Richard Carrier being so persecuted. People are so biased, and they want to cancel him, which is why he goes on channels that have like millions of views. He's definitely been canceled. It's definitely working.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows who this guy is. He never gets a platform. People don't even publish his work. Straight up cancel culture.
True.
I think everyone was surprised. And what happened was then there were a lot of attacks on my publisher, my original first on the Historicity of Jesus. They got attacked a lot. Denigrated and belittled, and all kinds of pressure was brought to bear.
Questioning their validity as a good
exactly. Yeah. They think they faked the peer review and all of this stuff.
Yep.
It's all false. But that was the
he said they faked the peer review.
I mean, one of the things that because Carrier's book passed through peer review and made it to publication, something that people have wondered was just how rigorous that peer review process is, because as he points out himself, it's not there's not a set standard across the board where every single publisher observes the same criteria and has the same level of rigor when it comes to the peer review. So this is something that people openly wondered about. Like, what did that process look like? Was this and the reason people wondered about some of that stuff was because of some of the problems with the book when it hit shelves, and scholars will look at this going, wait, like how
did this pass peer review?
This is not what. How did this get through? So it was an open. That's her superpower, guys. You can't tell when she's being sarcastic.
That's actually gotten me into trouble locally, like with some of my fellow organizers, is I'm so dry sometimes in our meetings that they can't tell when I'm actually asking for help or if I'm just being sardonic. And now that has been brought to my attention, I try to be very direct if I need something.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, apparently they weren't able to tell if I was being sarcastic or even sardonic, or if I was legitimately asking for things.
Yeah.
So
all right, let's finish this clip.
Okay.
I saw that, and then I saw I've gotten clues and other evidence that there are people working behind the scenes trying to get me canceled. So I know, for example, there's a fatwa against me at the Journal for the Study of the Historical Jesus.
So
I'm sorry.
It's just
thank you. Thanks, Lawrence. That was
good, Lawrence.
And also,
thank you.
No, Richard, there is no fatwa against you. Stop using words and you don't know the meaning or the context. Just don't do that. Mr. I'm so persecuted. There's a fatwa.
Yeah.
This is so ridiculous. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. This is making the stream so much more tolerable. I would love.
Good. I'm,
Thank
you know, Vish
Thanks.
was dreading
Thanks,
this. She was
Where
breathing
they've
into a
basically
paper
said
bag.
we will
I
never
was.
publish anything by Richard
Yeah.
Carrier, regardless of what
Let
it
me
says. Right? So,
rewind this.
You
so
could become
there's
a historicist, and they probably wouldn't.
so there are people working behind the scenes trying to get me canceled. So I know, for example, there's like a fatwa against me at the Journal for the Study of the Historical Jesus, where they've just basically said we will never publish anything by Richard Carrier, regardless of what it says.
Yeah.
Right? So,
That's a fatwa?
I don't think it
Huh.
is, but that's
Pretty sure that's not what that means, but whatever.
it sounds. It's
so
You could
there's
become a historicist,
yeah.
and they probably wouldn't.
Historicist. Don't they know that their Jesus is fake, like us, enlightened scholars? We're so smart. Gosh. Come on. Aaron Adair, wherever you are, man, please. You're better than this.
no, they'll totally do it then, right?
True.
No, but this policing exists. So I think that by the time I was publishing now, there's this, we have to stop this attitude within the guild, right? And so I think that's what happened here.
His attitude is, I get to say whatever I want, and if you disagree, you're wrong. And if you don't
and
want to
not
give
just
me
not just
air
wrong.
or
Not
space,
just
you're just being biased.
not just wrong. Carrier has a tendency to label his opponents who disagree with him as insane. So you know,
great.
it's
Okay.
yeah. But I think legitimately some people get sick and tired of being called things like that. So it, you know,
Yeah. Listen, it's not everyone else's problem that he can't support his arguments and that he doesn't understand the text that he's citing in other languages. That's a him problem. Like, he
Yep.
can learn Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic. He can learn these languages at any time. Nothing's stopping him.
Mhm. Well,
But
his
he
Greek's
has
fine.
chosen not to. So, yeah.
The two peer reviewers clearly had it in for me and couldn't come up with any actual specific error that I needed to correct or that undermined anything that I said. They just had to invent reasons to nix it, and they're all like dumb reasons.
So pause, stop
Okay.
it there, and bring it down for a
Yeah.
minute. And what I wanna sort of focus in on here, my first point really about this, is, and I am really surprised that they didn't dwell on this more specifically. They spend a lot of time talking about how much Carrier is being persecuted and how much his work is being pushed out of the field because they just don't like him and they don't like the direction of his totally legitimate research. You know, one of the things that as soon as I saw this piece, I was like, what's really, really problematic here is the question of anonymity. So, and I want you to think through this with me a little bit here. When I send my work in for peer review, I don't know who the reviewers are. When I review articles that are sent to me by journals, I don't know who has written them. They have been anonymized. Now, excuse me for a sec. Sorry. There are rare occasions when I know a scholar well enough, and it's in my world, the Dead Sea Scrolls scholarship. It's pretty small, so you get a sense on what everyone's doing a lot of the time. So there, I think this probably happens in a place like that more than maybe some of these other subdisciplines of biblical studies. But there are times when I have read an article and I'm like, I think I know who wrote this, right? But by and large, for the process to work, for it to be successful, the feeling is that anonymity is the best way to go, as a way to help eliminate just this kind of bias that that Carrier is complaining about. Now, is it even possible to properly anonymize this book? I think
I mean,
that's
who else is making these arguments?
a legitimate question, right? How would Carrier go about anonymizing his work in such a way that, especially a book that's basically rehearsing all the reasons why scholars wouldn't listen to him when he published his last book, Jay Bundy. I had a reviewer who had to be removed from my manuscript when he became my postdoctoral advisor. Exactly. Also a tiny field, but even when you think you know, you really can't be sure usually. And I, that's true, right? But I think that this raises a problem. This raises an issue. I'm not sure exactly how to solve a problem like that. Like I don't think a book like Obsolete Paradigm could effectively be anonymized. I'm just not even sure how you would go about doing that. We'll talk about errors of fact here in a minute. But I just don't know how you go about doing that with something like this. One of the things that and it's commonplace now, excuse me, and it and it's potentially more problematic, but like I write in the first person when I publish academically, and what that means is when I submit things to a peer reviewer, I have to submit a version that's where I've effectively just taken just reduced all my first person statements to third person statements. Because there are times when I will say things like, when I wrote this back in 2014, I made this argument, those sorts of things, right? So at that point, then duh, right? It's the anonymity is gone. But with something like this, I would have to think for it to, I'm not sure it could be properly anonymized. And if it could, it would be such a monumental effort in the first place. I'm just kind of like, how would that even work? But I think this raises a more significant problem, and you alluded to it, Vish. You raised the question here. You caught on to it. So Carrier's famous for mythicism. No one else is writing and publishing about this. It's like the only thing that he publishes within that we'd ever submit to a biblical studies press or journal or anything. And that on its own, like it feels unfair to him in one respect, right? If he can't properly be anonymized, then how can he get a fair hearing? But then I think the other side of that is, if you are the only person in the entire guild who is talking about this, then maybe that's an issue. If it's
either you're
that
the
you've been talking about,
super special chosen one that's going to bunk the whole thing and completely redo the Academy's position on something, or you're full of shit and you're coping.
So it's if you've been publishing this stuff for 10 years now, and nobody else is, and nobody else has picked up your ideas and running with it, and you're the only one still, is that an issue you should be reflective on? And more so than just no, it's the children who are wrong kind of approach, right? Like,
could it be that I'm out of touch, that my methodology is askew and my conclusions are wrong? No, it's the scholars who are wrong.
So I want to pull this up again from Jay. I don't know what you do in a case like this, but in any case, it's always fishy when you go down. The reviewers had it out for me. Yeah. Exactly. And we'll get to some of that, but I think this is a useful question. I think it's probably what happened. I think, because it's impossible to anonymize this work, it's also probably incredibly difficult to provide the kind of effective review that's free from all biases that we should. And I with Jay, I don't know what to do in a situation like that, or how to approach that. But I think it does raise some questions about the legitimacy of the project, though, too. If you are the only person who's talking about it after 10 years, and nobody else is talking about it. What was that from Dr. Clark Van Gilder?
Oh, I just was. Hang on. Is it just me, or is there's obscene irony in a well-known white dude complaining about getting canceled? Look, this is just part of the larger, societal trend.
It sure is.
Dude who has belonged to the class that has had the default assumption of good faith and good intentions and solid this and given the benefit of the doubt in every situation, and their voices have been prioritized and centered for this guy's entire life. He belongs to that class of people, suddenly having to share that space with other people who didn't always have their opinions and work and methods centered or even listened to. And now it just seems to them that they're being canceled, and people are just persecuting me, the well-known white dude who's struggling in this society to be heard amidst all the bias and persecution. Can't even publish a book because of woke. It's just pathetic.
Should we got a few super chats. Should we look at those quickly?
Yeah, I did star a few things as well.
All right.
Here we go. Gordon,
wow,
Science,
Gordon,
generous.
Thank you so much.
Very generous. He writes, I don't have enough knowledge to comment on the subject, but have found your channel enlightening as well as entertaining. I wanted to support your channel this way, in addition to belonging to your Patreon.
Oh, thank you so much,
Thanks, Gordon.
That's very nice. I very much appreciate it. So it's super important.
Volcano Truth or Tad for 5. YouTube didn't notify me about this until now. I blame Kip for this.
That's fair. You know what? It probably is my fault. I mean, Vish didn't know. If she didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did make it home from my errands today in time, so I was, cooling off and whatever, but I just get this call out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what's happening? Turns out communication is a good thing to have. Do you think Carrier believes the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a myth too? The tired sighing I'm doing is, I don't even want to open this can of worms, because he's already not qualified to talk about Second Temple Jewish literature the way that he does. There's no way that he could possibly get all of the nuance and context around that very small, much maligned sect of Chabad that believes that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Messiah. So I don't trust him to handle that. So I'm just like, oh, please no, please. Chuck, this is a very good point. If a reviewer gives no feedback, take it up with the editor or publisher. They need to know that, and we'll find someone else to review. Yeah, that's the whole point of reviewing. Yeah, you need to give feedback. So let's see. Kudo, I hope I pronounced that right. His argument is, if we ignore all the evidence in favor of historical human Jesus, we can construct an internally consistent hypothesis that Jesus was entirely fictional.
It's something like that.
That's a pretty apt summary. Jason Rollins for 5. Can you address the idea of whether you think Carrier should publish the peer reviews he received himself and make them public?
Yeah, I think I would love to see the review reports myself. I'm hoping that at some point they become available. But I don't know I don't know about the ethics or the legality
Yeah.
of a situation like this, because I'm fairly sure the reviewers themselves have to sign off on it and the publisher has to agree in order for that to happen. So I'll just say I want to see them. If I felt that I was being unfairly maligned by peer reviewers at a press, well, I mean, I wouldn't do this. That's for sure. I would, as we said, I probably would take it up with the editors of the press. I would look for another place to publish, which Carrier has done, right?
But I would also seek out an academic outlet, because I still want people who are qualified to do the reviewing, because just that to me seems like the whole point is, hey, I have some ideas, and people who are qualified and knowledgeable on this very specific topic should be the ones that are reading it, investigating it, and giving their feedback on it, not just a random publisher who probably doesn't know what any of this is about.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Emergency Moto. Hey, how you doing? Been a while for 5. Thanks, Kip and Vashanti, for doing this and being so sincere. This kind of genuine take really puts things in perspective for dummies like me. You are not a dummy. You just aren't a turbo nerd on this one topic. And that is okay.
Exactly.
Oh, Pat Lewinger.
Good to see you, Pat.
Standing on the corner with a sandwich board. It does feel that way. Yeah, it does
awesome.
Feel that way.
Okay, so
Video?
Yeah, but I think
Okay.
I think maybe now, yeah, maybe just move on to 414. Skip the next section and just move on to 414. And before we do, I just want to, because I want to we're going to start to get into things that we actually know about the peer reviewer reports. So on his blog, Carrier, I'm gonna pull this up. I should have done this earlier, but he actually published a couple of sentences of what appeared in the reports for the rationale of why why his manuscript was rejected. And he says it was rejected on the grounds that it does not make a unique original contribution to the field of biblical studies, which will help to advance the discipline. It will not be interesting for readers within the discipline, and it does not engage with the field / discipline. So these are some of the charges leveled by the reviewers as to why they have decided it doesn't meet the standard of publication. So I want to keep that in view as we sort of continue here. So let's play this little clip here. I think it's pretty interesting. It's about 40 seconds here, but
academic language book.
All right.
I have actually been through another peer review process with a different academic publisher in a different field, not biblical studies, where I got a response that was completely patently bogus. And I told the editors, like they're literally making stuff up, like how, and so the editor said, well, look, we're bound by these rules that we can't just reject a peer review report. We, the editors, agree that peer review report is bogus, that the thing is making that up. But we don't have, our procedure is that you have to resubmit with a new peer review process, which might take a year.
Okay, pause it there.
Okay.
What happened? Because if I understand him correctly, he's now saying that he has also submitted this manuscript to another publisher who is not a biblical studies press. And then he says, I got a response that was completely patently bogus. So and from the peer reviewers, by the sounds of it. To me, it sounds like he's actually failed peer review for this manuscript twice now.
Twice.
Am I misunderstanding that? I don't know, but that's what it sounds like. Especially then, like he goes on to say, I told the editors, like, they're literally making stuff up. And so the editor said, well, look, we're bound by these rules that we can't just reject a peer review report. We, the editors, agree that the peer review report is bogus, that they're making that up. But we don't have, our procedure is that you have to resubmit with a new peer review process, which might take a year. So as I understand that, went to a second publisher, submitted his manuscript. It was peer reviewed. It was rejected. He found issues with the reports there as well, approached the editor. The editor said, yeah, okay, your complaint is legitimate, but we'll have to do this all over again, which could take another year. At which point he decided to just go with a different publisher and to forego.
This was this was for a paper in a different field.
So now,
which
see, this
is to me not really making the whole argument better, because what that's making me start to wonder is if his other scholarship outside of mythicism, if his other methodology is questionable, or if his research is questionable in different fields that he's publishing in. Because I'm noticing that the common element in both of these processes, whether it's on mythicism or his other topic, is him. So it just seems unusually like coincidental that he gets bogus reviews for two completely unrelated papers, or manuscripts.
So, and I think people are saying it sounds like it's a different manuscript. I think that's you're probably right. I was probably mishearing that. And I think he's making this point. So he's making this point then that he doesn't want to resubmit. So he did what we suggested, what I said I would do, right? Like, go to the editors, right? But he decided he didn't want to resubmit with the same press using different reviewers because it would take too long. So and this is an issue, right? Like, your work as a scholar is not always going to be accepted. And sometimes you have to shop it around. And sometimes you sit with stuff for a long time before it gets published. Like, I don't think he so our friend Joel Carrico, he's talked about this on Bible Scotch and Scholars. Yeah, Swole Carrico. He talked about this on our last Scotch stream. By the way, we're gonna plan another one here, but it's probably gonna be a few weeks. So on our last Scotch stream, he talked about this article that he has written about the golden calf incident. It's a pretty interesting article. I quite like it. I mean, if I was a reviewer, I would have been like, yeah, this is good. I like this. Fix these little things and let's go. So, but it's been through a few now, like, and been rejected now, like 2 or 3 times, and he's frustrated about it because he does feel like the reviewers are maybe not getting it, or they're nitpicking about things that he thinks are not important. But you know what he's not doing?
Claiming that he's being persecuted and there's a fatwa against him, and that he's being silenced and canceled.
He's not doing that. That's for sure. And at some point, if he can't find a publisher, he may end up just deciding that, fuck it, this is just not happening. I'm gonna let it go. And sometimes that happens. And I don't know, like, is that's sad. Unless you're, unless it's your work is shit, but that's not Joel's paper is actually pretty good. I like it. But
the thing is like, look, sometimes this does happen. People misread your arguments, or they don't understand the point you're making. That does legitimately happen. It's happened to me in very casual context as well. Like, I'm not even a publishing academic, and what happens usually with me is if I'm teaching a class, or if I'm making a presentation, or I'm trying to facilitate a meeting, and repeatedly people are saying things that I didn't say, there's a disconnect there, I stop and go, okay, clearly I'm not communicating what I need to communicate, because people aren't walking away with the points that I'm trying to make. So I circle back and try to rework things to make them much clearer or concise, or I tack on something that summarizes it very clearly or directly. That is a thing that you can do. And, if Joel's having problems, that might be something that helps him get published. I don't know. It's obviously, I can't say because I haven't yet read the article, but I would like to, because it sounds fascinating. And I'm also not the
he's now rewritten it like 3 times,
like a million times. Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
I did want to, sorry. To be fair, some New Testament scholars have published academic books arguing for the historicity of miraculous things like resurrection. That's crazier than mythicism, and I totally agree. Yeah. And that's where in my field, one of the real problems in my field, and it's ongoing, is how the lines between theology and biblical scholarship, frustratingly, will tend to
remain blurry.
And they remain really blurry. So you can get like and this is the a big part of the frustration, right? Like, sure, if IVP academic or Zondervan academic or there's actually some good stuff in Baylor, but like, even some things from Baylor or like Whipfenstock or some of these guys, I know exactly what those are about, and I'm not reading those, right? Like, that's just it's just you understand who those publishers are, you understand what criteria they're observing for the manuscripts they're publishing. But then the real frustration comes in when a gigantic publisher like W.B. Erdman's, one of the largest biblical studies presses, also has like a theology arm. And so they will publish both, right? And at that point, you just have to read it and go, well, this is bullshit, or this is really good, because legitimately they do things that are really good and they do things that are bullshit. Totally agreed. It's a problem. The reviewers are supposed to come from his intended readership. If they don't get his point, he needs to rephrase in such a way that they do. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So
because that's a common thing that Carrier's been saying for years, as long as I've ever had him on my radar, is he keeps saying people don't understand the arguments he's making. And when that keeps happening repeatedly over several years, buddy, the problem's probably you. It's not everybody else. Like, do some self-reflection. I know that's asking a lot. I mean, bars in hell.
Yeah. If a good publisher publishes a theological work, I'll take it in a different context than I do scholarship. And it has like and it's not just Erdman's, right? Like Oxford and Cambridge both have like they're gigantic publishers, right? So they're publishing in multiple disciplines of the humanities. So it's not your what gets labeled as biblical scholarship versus theology. Sometimes the nuances there are not as obvious to people unless you're immersed within the discipline. So this is why a lot of people from outside of the guild, outside of my field, can look at stuff that happens and go, wow, this is all just nonsense. When you spend enough time in my world, and you learn and you figure out, and that's unfortunate that it's not as transparent and as accessible for lay people as maybe it should be. What was that?
This is a two-parter. Someone says,
okay.
I think they don't understand the arguments I'm making actually means they don't agree with me to him. And then, like, I understand his arguments, I just don't think they're any good. Like, yeah,
that's
also,
me too, right?
fair.
So, okay. So
And
let's.
yes, Apology has been eviscerating.
Oh my God.
Gary
Yes.
Habermas's freaking magnum opus. Like, his last video on the citations had me rolling. I
It
was
was
crying
hilarious.
actual
was so
tears. I
good.
was laughing so hard because you're like, oh, all of these scholars that are atheists, or they're skeptics, or they're this and this, and then Paul goes, wait,
90%.
hang on a second. And he goes and he shows you the page of citations, like people that he quotes, and he's like, these are Christians. What do you mean that they're like a hostile audience, or that they're whatever? He's like, did you mean that they're just not evangelical? And then even Habermas's like interviewer, I don't remember who it was, but he was like, wait, he actually cottoned on to that too. And then I was
it
like,
came up
I
in a
don't feel like I
conversation
can
with
judge
Lycona
people's heart.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was Michael Kona. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't feel qualified. I can't judge what's in people's hearts. And I'm like, well, you did it on paper. Just I can't.
Yep.
He spent
I know.
how many years and thousands of words and thousands of pages writing this crap, and it just falls apart. It's like paper towels, man. God.
This
Whatever.
has become a trope though in his press tours. Wherever he goes, everybody has to talk about how gigantic and how heavy the books are.
Okay.
It's like,
so you
all
rambled.
right.
Good job.
Wow. Yeah.
All right.
Excellent.
Whatever.
So yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that was it, Brandon.
Dale
that was the
Allison.
thing. I actually messaged Paul about this because I had to stop. I had to pause the video because he was citing Dale Allison as like
not just
an agnostic or whatever scholar, and
anti-right.
Anti-right. And I'm like, wait,
Anti-right.
self-confessed professing Christian Dale Allison.
Wow.
Just
Wow.
what?
Yes.
I honestly, sincerely hope that Dale Allison does not find out that Habermas said that crap about him, because, like, that's just not right.
Oh, that's good.
That is just not right.
Habermas calls Christians who agree with him atheists. Carrier calls atheists who disagree with him crypto Christians, actually.
Oh, sorry. I think they meant Habermas calls Christians who don't agree with him atheists, or maybe he meant that they do agree. I don't know. Let me know, David, if you mistyped.
All right.
Crypto Christians. Yeah. He corrected it.
Okay.
Yeah, he corrected it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So Habermas calls them atheists and call them crypto Christians. Are you a crypto Christian, Kip? Are you hiding it?
Yes.
For fear of some sort of
100%.
hierarchical or institutional
and this is
persecution.
This is the thing that I don't understand in terms of the conspiracy, right? Like there's the field is dominated by Christians. The field is dominated by people of faith. That's true. But a lot of those people of faith are Jewish. A lot of them. And they certainly don't have any stakes in maintaining.
You better not be accusing us of being crypto Christians. That's some
right?
BS.
Right? Like why? Why? Same with the tons. There are maybe not a huge majority, but I bet plenty of skeptics, non-confessional biblical scholars who are also like don't care. You know, Jesus, no Jesus, doesn't matter. But I'm reading these texts, and this is where the evidence going. And you know, we'll talk about it when we get there. Maybe we should go on to the next clip.
I just
here.
want to. There's a couple of funny things. There was only one Christian. He came out, saw a shadow, and another 2,000 years of guilt.
Oh, I have sound effects somewhere, don't
And,
I?
oh, good. Grumpy Librarian says, yeah, I have to pretend to be an atheist, so the 10 to 11% of Americans who consider themselves atheist or agnostic will take me seriously. I repent every night.
God damn it! Why don't I have a buttichu drum sound? I feel like I need that.
I mean, I have one on Discord, but it's
I know.
not really going to help us.
It's not going to work here, sadly. Oh well.
If you get a clip, make sure it's the one from Saturday Night Live where they're doing the really bad stand-up lounge performers, and the guy on the drum set, I can't remember the comedian that plays him. He's always just preposterously late on his rim shots. So the lounge singer or performer will make a joke, and then like a minute and a half later, in the middle of a sentence on an unrelated, he just and he's just staring into the middle distance. You got to get that.
Maybe someday, if
okay.
I'm so fortunate.
Okay.
And then I got to start over, and it takes years and years.
This
and years to get the book published,
this is a bit of a longer one, I think.
Someone who will ask an honest peer reviewer to peer review the book. So rather than do that, that's why I said, you know what? The peer reviewers found no errors of fact. I've been peer reviewed. Like, they had every opportunity to find something wrong. The thing is that on those,
so that's
probably
but
no,
but I think it's that this is the point that he was making on his blog, right? They couldn't find, he says they couldn't find any errors of fact, which is something we'll talk about here when we finish this clip. Couldn't find any errors of fact. Therefore, I passed peer review. So
with more systematic review processes. They're very explicit in saying that you do not have to agree with the conclusion. Like the point of it is like, can you find any errors of fact? Are there any, like, they don't use the word fallacies, but they'll use something like, is there any like can you specifically identify methodological, like an invalid method used or something like that? And so they hone them in on that. All they want to know is like, look, is there something egregiously bogus about this? If you want your dissertation to pass, this is what.
It's not just that though. It's not just that. And you can't be like, oh well, they didn't find any errors of fact. Dude, do you think that they were sitting here combing through this as being biased? He accuses them of being biased. So they're biased. Don't you think they would find errors of fact if they were biased? Even would make them up, perhaps? Like, you can't argue that they're biased and then say, well, they didn't find any errors of fact. Like, what?
See, I think, and that's a question I have, right? How does he understand this errors of fact? Within, so I mean, just we looked at his summation of Sanhedrin 98b compared to the actual text of Sanhedrin 98b within its historical context. Is that an error of fact? That, like, I would say if he's misreading it, it's not what you would not. I mean, we can point out exactly the problems with his reading of it, right, and where he's wrong. But facts are irrelevant if your arguments are not valid.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Continue.
Okay.
What we need to do. Yeah. And like, here's the things I think are errors. Here's the things I think are good. Here's the things I think you can fix. I think you're close. Like, you can do this, right? And so if you want to read that, that's very similar. Like when I got like for my dissertation advisor, same thing. Like chapter by chapter, they say, here's some things that you could do to improve this, etc. So like peer review is very similar to what you'd go through when you're getting a PhD, when you have your advisors and you have your dissertation committee. There's multiple members of your dissertation committee. You're all doing the same thing. You're all like critiquing every chapter and saying, here's how to make it pass my judgment, right?
Right.
None of them are agreeing with you. That's not the point. The point is, are you using the methods? Are your facts in line, etc.? Like, does this look like what we want to stand by in terms of, and it's good scholarship. I don't agree with the conclusion, but I agree with at least the approach.
And they might agree or they might not, but they don't have to.
Also true, correct.
They don't. Okay, pause it there. So they don't have to agree. Like, that's absolutely true. That's not. And I have had, I know the one of the peer reviewers for my monograph did not agree with several of my conclusions. But got to publication, right? Because I was making cogent arguments that are right within the stream of current scholarship. But what do people hear when they hear Carrier say, or Richard Miller and Aaron Adair both agreed, right? Yeah, there's no errors of fact in the book that the peer reviewers pointed to. I don't know what that means, right? And I think the audience probably, and people who've never undergone the peer review process before, probably have ideas about what that means. And then even I think for someone like, say, our friend Aaron Adair, who is a scientist, right, and writes scientific papers. He writes papers for the humanities as well,
like astrophysics.
I think he's an astrophysicist. So him and the weasel. But he writes scientific papers, and so he probably, like, I imagine, because I'm not a scientist, within the hard sciences, you produce your argument, you show your testing and your results, and you show the math, and so long as all of those pieces add up, and your conclusion is repeatable, I expect that's what they're looking for, right? But that's not exactly how. You can't do the humanities like that, right? There's more at work here.
Even in some of the hard sciences, something will initially pass peer review because, like, the math is good, for instance. But then when it gets published, the other people in the field are like, oh, neat, this is a new development. So they go and they try to replicate the experiment and the results. And then sometimes those papers get retracted because nobody else could get what you got. They couldn't duplicate the results that you said that you got. So this is also, this is different than, the history field or, other things like that aren't like what we would consider hard sciences. And that's, I did want to say that Aaron Adair is a degreed physicist, but he also does work in biblical scholarship and has gotten published before. So it's not like he's just some chump.
No, it's true.
Pretty solid.
But he's in the same way that, to do a lot of work in biblical studies, you need years and years of rigorous training, right? Sometimes the papers passed peer review because the math was good, but the journal was a math journal. Well, the paper was about
This happened to a young Earth creationist. He was like, "Oh yeah, I've totally gotten published, and they agreed with my stuff, so therefore evolution fake." And it was in a math journal, and it's like, okay, well, you did math, good job, but you didn't disprove evolution. You didn't publish in a biology paper.
Yeah,
so.
And I think, I think that's probably what's going on here, and this is where, I think that Carrier and Adair probably just don't understand the field maybe as well as they think they do. In order to be looking for certain things, but missing what I consider are some pretty critical errors. Like, for example, is your is a misrepresentation of a source without an adequate translation, an error of fact, like with the Babylonian Talmud, or with his summary of Wisdom of Solomon, or his summary of the Zechariah 3 passage, or his summary of 11Q Melchizedek, which I thought was a big one. This is a fragment, couple of fragments from a particular Dead Sea Scroll. And he has provided a, well, maybe I'll just bring this up and look at this. So, because I think he starts to talk about, here we go. I'm starting right at the bottom of, it's the second paragraph in the second column there. The more specific notion of a dying Messiah, we also have other pre-Christian evidence in the form of a Dead Sea Scrolls designated 11Q13, the Melchizedek scroll. And then he provides this footnote for the scroll's text and translation and notes. See Alex Jason, who actually very importantly provides a text that differs significantly from the one that Carrier wants to use in making his argument. John cites Bergsma, Gaze of Ramesh. These are all, legitimate publications. Marty Abeg, my good friend from down the road. Lara Guglielmo, sorry. I believe she was a PhD student when she wrote that. So he's got some sources here that you can look at to check out 11Q13. That's fine, right? So this he says that this is an apocalyptic pesher, a document attempting to discover hidden messages in the scriptures by finding secret links among disparate and previously unrelated verses. See elements 8 and 16, which together communicate God's plan most commonly, and certainly in this case, his plans for the coming Messiah, the defeat of evil, and the end of the world. There are many such pesherim at Qumran, but this one tells us about the messenger of Isaiah 52 to 53, who is linked in Isaiah with a servant who will die to atone for everyone's sins, presaging God's final victory, which, as we have already seen, later Jews definitely regarded as the Messiah. At Qumran, 11Q13 appears to say that this messenger is the same man as the Messiah of Daniel 9, who dies around the same time, and end to sin is said to be accomplished. Now, importantly, on that sentence, he says that it appears to say that this messenger, one of the reasons for that is because the text is fragmentary, and the critical element, the critical word that would show us that this linkage to Daniel chapter 9 is actually Daniel chapter 9 verse 27, most specifically, is actually what's taking place in this manuscript. It's not there. It's absent. It's in the lacuna. It needs to be reconstructed, right? So it could be the Messiah who was cut off from Daniel 9:27, but it probably more likely, I think, is the Messiah, the Prince, and that's a big difference in this manuscript, right? Yeah. And okay. So thus 11Q13 appears to predict that a Messiah will die, and that this will mark the final days before which God's agents will defeat Belial and Satan and atone for the sins of the elect. Not all scholars have recognized this in 11Q13 or conceded it, though I find no basis for rejecting it. So, and he adds another footnote here, note 37. Oh, that's just his own article.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's like, so he doesn't go on to discuss any of the several problems with this manuscript. He doesn't key in on the fact that a critical word that he needs in making his case is just not there. he misstates that the scroll tells us about the messenger of Isaiah 52 to 53. 11Q Melchizedek quotes Isaiah 52, verse 1, I think, but that's it.
Yep. Did you read citation 58? Sorry, is it 58 or 38? Sorry, 38. It was really tiny. What was his citation for 38? Okay, for this one, pre-Christian interpretation.
Yeah.
Hang on.
So I didn't really want to get into this one because it's a bit complex and involved.
Okay,
yes.
this is I'm just trying to skim it. Suffering servant pierced rather than bruised, and responding very wounded. God is still about his parents. Okay. Oh my God.
So
this is so weak.
Importantly, Isaiah 53 is not cited in the Melchizedek Pesher. It's not. Isaiah 52:1, which says, "Behold on the mountains the feet of the messenger proclaiming good news." That's what's cited in the Melchizedek scroll, and then it moves on, and it's piecing together these fragmented bits of scripture in order to stitch together this picture of the last days. Now, I would say that by omitting a lot of this information, or generally perhaps misunderstanding the nature of the discussion that scholars are having surrounding this manuscript, those are significant enough omissions that if I were a peer reviewer of this, I go, hey, you have to fix this. Like, you can't just skate past this stuff and pretend that it's all there. You have to deal with it in making your case. So I wanted to what does he say? I've flagged note 34 here. Let me go back to this. Here we go. Right. Okay. Is that right? That doesn't seem right. 33, 34. Oh yeah. Okay. So let's go back here, because there's something else I want to point out in point 34. So here he's talking about quite subtly in this paragraph. If anyone, this is the second paragraph in the first column, if anyone were to merge the two messiahs, the son of Joseph and the son of David, which, there are reasons why that doesn't work. There are reasons why that doesn't work. We don't have time to get into it. If you understand the field, if you understand Judaism, you understand why there are reasons why that doesn't work, and why it seems, I suppose it could have happened, but we have no reason to think anyone ever thought to do this. Anyways, we would have Christianity, a Messiah fathered by Joseph, who is killed by an evil power and is then resurrected and anointed, the son of David, destined to return triumphant. It's far more likely that Christians united two figures already imagined in earlier Jewish apocalyptic thought than that rabbinical Jews took a novel Messiah from the heretical sect of Christianity and elaborately split it into two Messiahs with otherwise all the same attributes, and then make no mention of how this responds to Christianity, or they would even do that. So I wanted to pull up his footnote here, because he makes this point, and this is true. The Dead Sea Scrolls speak of two messiahs. One, the Messiah of Aaron, who would be the true high priest, and the Messiah of Israel, who would be a kingly warlord figure. In broad strokes, that's generally true. And then he's got some bibliography. Evans, Flint.
One sec. Hang on. He says, we might have evidence of a strand of that prior tradition in the early first century Targum of Yonatan ben Uziel on Isaiah 53, which explicitly identifies the suffering servant there as the Christ. What language was the Targum of Yonatan ben Uziel written in?
Aramaic.
Did they use the word Christos there, or Christ?
They did not.
No. When you capitalize Christ, you don't italicize it or indicate that you're pulling in like a cognate. He's intentionally evoking Jesus. Do you think whoever wrote Targum of Yonatan ben Uziel was talking about Jesus the Christ?
No, in fact, we know who the Targumist of Isaiah 53 was talking about. He was talking about Bar Kokhba, Bar Kosiba was universally agreed by scholars to have been the figure in view with the rewriting of Isaiah 53 by
so
Targum Jonathan.
not
But
the Christ.
Nope. But
what's funny though, but otherwise transforms the narrative to suppress or downplay the element of dying. Okay, but to anyone who read this Targum and then the original Hebrew or Greek, which isn't him, he doesn't have any real understanding of Hebrew, could put 2 and 2 together. This servant is the Messiah, plus this servant dies and is buried, then exalted. He is making some leaps, plus equals the Messiah who dies and is buried and exalted, the very doctrine we see in the Talmud. No, you don't see that in the Talmud, which just happens to be the doctrine adopted by Christians. No, Richard, no. That people can do something doesn't mean they did. And if you want to say that they did, which he's intentionally avoiding in this note, by the way, because he knows like he can't support that. He just wants to make it not impossible and say, well, they could have done it. It doesn't mean they did. And he hasn't shown any positive corroborating evidence that they did.
There's dozens and dozens and dozens of problems with his work in early Judaism. We can't look at all of them. But I wanted
this to... This is why... I called him out on some of this, like in a live chat one time. I don't remember which one it was, but I was like, bro.
It was on David McDonald's channel.
And I was like, you literally do not know what you are talking about. And he starts throwing out all this stuff. And I quoted, the actual primary sources to him. And he was like, well, I read people who understand it. Well, congratulations, because you don't.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a... You know what? If he reads people that understand it, he doesn't understand it. And if he wants to quote that literature, he needs to understand it.
Yep. So here in note 34, he's talking about the 2 messiahs extant at Qumran. He's got some bibliography there. He continues and says, it's debated whether these are actually 2 messiahs or what kind of messiahs they are. Some more bibliography. But this is what I wanted to key in on. It's also debated whether one of the Qumran fragments says one of these messiahs will be pierced and killed, or whether he will pierce and kill someone else. And I consider that question unresolvable. The manuscript is too damaged to tell. And then he's got further bibliography. The reason I think this is interesting, I think this illustrates the point about how nuanced the field can be if you're not immersed in it and you're not dealing with the primary and the secondary literature. And also importantly, if you don't read the languages, you don't know how to navigate some of this stuff. So this is okay. I'm gonna take this one off stop screen, and then I'm going to bring up the fragments, which is super cool. So the manuscript in question is 4Q285. This is the manuscript, which some have suggested it's not. This is something that some scholars got really excited about in the 1990s, and a few articles were written about it. People were kind of breathless about the fact that the Messiah is, or more properly, the Nasi Ha'edah, the Prince of the Congregation, which is a title for, it's like a messianic title. It looks like he's killed in this fragment, right? What now it is fragmentary. In more recent years, when scholars caught their breath and actually sat down and took some time and looked at this fragment, no, probably not. This is not what's happening in this fragment, and I'll explain why. So here you have on the first visible line Isaiah the prophet, and then you've got some quotation. You've got a citation. I think it's Isaiah chapter 11. Let me pull this up just so that I know exactly. Oh, sorry, Isaiah 10, 34 to 11:1. So you've got Isaiah the prophet there, and then it says something about the shoot. This word on the right on line 2 that is partially there. That's nafal. That's will fall, and a shoot will come out from the stump of Jesse. That's famous, right? The shoot that will come out of the stump of Jesse. In the next line, it's the branch of David, and then it says that
something about judging.
Sorry, yeah,
it looks like it's
so
kind of cut off.
they will be judged.
Yeah.
Right, it's a nefal form of the verb there. Importantly, I want you to pay attention to this. Right on the left hand side of that fragment in line 3, you have
Well, that's Jesus, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the
kidding.
two letters there. That is what's called the direct object marker in Hebrew. It marks the object. It's an untranslatable word. It marks the object of the verb. So the shoot of David, and then it says they will be judged. And so it's the et there is marking the object of this verb. Whoever it is will be judged by whom, right? And then this is the next critical line. These look like yods, but these are the first, the ones at the beginning and the end of the word are actually vavs. Doesn't make any sense if they're yods. This is one of these manuscripts, right, where the letters look exactly the same. The yods look exactly like the vavs in this manuscript, because you've got 3 examples of letters in this word here. The first letter, then the 4th letter, then the 6th letter. The first and the third letter are the first and the third one are the same. The one in the middle is different. So oftentimes it can be very hard to distinguish between a vav and a yod.
How big is this fragment?
A couple centimeters. Let me see. I could actually probably pull up a ruler for you. There it is. Although that's wrong. So look at don't look at the number at the bottom. Look at the marks on the side. So it's probably 3 centimeters tall by about 5 centimeters wide. So, but it's a very easy to read fragment.
So it's only about like this big. That is super tiny.
I know, right? Yeah. So
like no wonder the yods and the vavs look the same.
Yeah.
God.
So now this expression here has been this is what was translated originally as a third person plural imperfect verb. They will kill Nasi Ha'edah, the prince of the congregation, and then it breaks off some more. Now, because there's no vowel pointing in this, because it's not vocalized, that could be the third masculine plural imperfect form of the verb, but it also could be the third masculine singular form of the verb with a pronominal suffix on the end. He killed him, or he will kill him. And in Hebrew, where do you, Vish? This is I don't want to put you on the spot, but
You're gonna do it anyway.
when you're I'm going to, because it's an easy one. If you're looking for the subject of a verb, the one doing the action, how does that usually work in Hebrew word order?
It's VSO. So
VSO,
verb,
subject, object. So he will kill him, Nasiha Eda, the prince of the congregation. Is that the subject of the verb?
No.
It actually is. So
wait,
it
sorry,
follows
what did
the
you ask
verb,
me?
right? I asked if that's the subject of the verb, or I should say, is that the object of the verb? Is this?
That's what I thought you
will
would ask.
kill-
If that
yeah,
was
yeah,
the
yeah.
object, I was like, wait,
Yes.
what? Oh,
No,
okay.
sorry. It's the subject of the verb. He will kill him. That is, the prince of the congregation will kill this
Whoever.
person. So this is not the Messiah being killed. This is the Messiah doing the killing. And the reasons we know that is because it is not marked with the direct object marker.
The direct object marker.
If this was the object of the verb, if this was they are killing or they will kill the prince of the congregation, then it would be marked with the direct object marker. And importantly, we see this right in the previous line of the manuscript, a verb followed by the direct object marker to clearly indicate what's happening here. And then it also, just within the context of what we see throughout the fragment, a prophecy from Isaiah about the shoot that will rise out of the stump of Jesse, who is identified as the branch of David, who will and a group of people who are going to be judged. And then in the following line, you have this word here, which is not clearly translatable, but most scholars think this is like female dancers. So, and with the dancers, then the priest will issue some sort of command. So within the context, it seems most likely, almost certain, that this is the prince of the congregation who is doing the killing. Now, I make that point because all of that is critical information about this particular fragment that Carrier mentions in his footnote that he doesn't understand. And he can't work through this stuff because he can't read the language. He dismisses it and says that it's unresolvable because it's fragmentary, when in actual fact it's pretty elementary. And scholars have moved.
He says unresolvable because it disagrees with this point. So
yeah. So, but that's what's happening in this fragment, and that's why scholars have moved pretty uniformly. I know James Tabor is still holding out hope that this is the Messiah being killed, but he is among a tiny little fraction of a minority of scholars who maintain that reading for this fragment, just because of the grammar and the syntax of what's actually extant there makes it pretty patently obvious that this is not a Messiah who's been killed. So now, is that an error of fact? He's again, it's one of these things, right? Like it's there are, and just I've got a list here of some other things just quickly. So he'll oftentimes fail to understand the nuances in terminology or arguments made by scholars in the field. For example, one of the points that Carrier likes to make in his book is how within Pesharim, these Jewish these interpreted texts that we discover at Qumran, he makes this point and cites a scholar for it, that within the Pesharim, you can have like a tiny little sliver of text, and then that is actually being pulled from a larger chunk. It's an argument that, interestingly enough, Christian apologists like to make when it comes to the New Testament, when Jesus will, or when the Gospels will cite a fragment of Scripture oftentimes Christian apologists will like to expand that to talk about like an entire chapter or an entire pericope, when in actual fact in early Judaism it was common practice to just, take these small fragments of the text and build your interpretation on just that.
We still do that.
We still do that.
We still do
Yes.
that. Like,
So
also,
it totally
ESO and
ignoring the
SBO is
context.
debated by whom
No,
and about
no,
Hebrew?
it is
Biblical
not.
Hebrew?
It
is
is
not.
absolutely not debated, Jason Rollins. No,
It is not. In fact,
it
it's
isn't.
BSO.
So
What is happening?
that's just wrong. So
Okay.
now I make this point about Carrier has said that in particular with the Isaiah or with the Isaiah 52-53 citation in 11Q Melchizedek, he says, well, I can include Isaiah 53 in that because within a pesher, when you just cite a fragment or a tiny little portion of the text, you're actually referring to the whole thing. And then he cites a scholar who wrote an article by the name of Shani Tzoref. I know Shani. I know the article. What he fails to recognize is that she is talking about what happens in continuous pesherim as opposed to thematic pesherim. Importantly, 11Q Melchizedek is classified as the thematic pesherim. Continuous pesherim, and this makes sense, right? Continuous pesherim are those which provide a running commentary to a text, a longer text where the a section, a couple of sentences is cited, and then an interpretation is offered, and then they move on to the next section of scripture. So yes, in those sorts of texts, you often will see this, that they will larger chunks of text will inform each other, within this larger narrative, but that's not something that you see in the thematic pesherim. And I think that Carrier just looks at the word pesherim and then doesn't understand that there are differences and
kinds.
there are nuances. There's different kinds. There's different ways to understand these texts. It just it's this is the sort of thing that happens. I'll bring one more up here. So in his book, and this is one that Simone noticed first and pointed out on her blog. At one point in his book, he cites. I'm going to pull up the get this right here. So let me see. Is it there? I think is that it. Sorry, this might take me a second.
That's
because
okay.
I didn't mark
Chat,
these
should I make
perfectly well.
chicken nuggies and French fries for dinner, or should I make a hot dog and French fries for dinner?
Are you
These are the
asking?
questions of our
You
time.
ask the chat. Chat, help her out. Because I'm
These are very important questions.
navigating some of my poorly structured. Oh, here it is. Okay. So at one point, Carrier is trying to draw a connection between some of the terminology and concepts that appear within early Christianity and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he keys in on what he says here. Paul assumes throughout 1 Corinthians 8 that Christians with certain secret knowledge can partake of pagan sacrifice meat, but that this might mislead Christians not yet privy to that knowledge, and therefore higher ranking Christians should not encourage this by setting a bad example. Thus he develops the compromise in 1 Corinthians 10, all of which entails there were levels of teaching kept hidden from lower ranks of Christians. So that's the claim. And then he says, we see something similar in the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of which mentions secrets held by insiders of differing rank, using the same distinction between, quote, babes and adults and, quote, milk versus meat. And on his footnote here, his source for that is Qumran Hymns of the Just 4, which is not a title that scholars recognize, And he drew this from Robert Price's book, the pre-Nicene Fathers, I think it is. And Robert Price wrote his own, and it's not even a translation, because as far as I know, Price also doesn't read Hebrew. As far as I know, he took an English translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls and then made it more poetical, flavored it up a little bit, and as a result, there's all sorts of words
Butchered the text. Yeah.
in his
Good
translation
job.
that just are not in the manuscript in question. So it takes some time to actually dig around and find the actual manuscript. The actual manuscript is the Hodayot, and the actual section of the text is it's 1QHA. Shoot, where is it? I have it written down here. So it's 1QHA 15, 13 to 23 to 25. Sorry. So, and this is what it says. So I'll give you Price's translation of this. So actually, yes, he says here at the end, this is Robert Price talking about his version of this text. My version of the hymns paraphrases the English translation of Wilfred Watson. It is necessarily loose because I feel it best to try to convey a sense of poetry of the original, rendering it in iambic tetrameter and pentameter. Again, my goal is not merely to provide an autopsy of extinct religious fossils, as important as that admittedly is, but to offer something reminiscent of the original embodiments of vital religious devotion. So I'm just I think it's his the 14th. Yeah, it's the 14th one here. So here's how he translates this section. Yes. Am I in 14? No, that's 13. Okay.
Simone
14.
says it took me like 4 hours to find the columns in question in the Hodayot.
Yeah, right.
Oh
my gosh.
So
Yeah.
free in his translation.
It doesn't even number things properly, right? Yeah. So the text in question, this is Price's translation of the passage. The statutes of your covenant have propped me up and made me firm, and I have held fast to your truth so that I may not forget a line. A father you have made me to all those men whom you approve, a nurse to feed them purest milk, for which they crave, although they lack the teeth for revelation's meat. This is what the text actually says. I believe this is Marty Abeg's translation. Your covenant, I have taken hold of your truth, and you have appointed me. Oh, sorry, let me back up a little bit here. So, you have stood me in your covenant, and I have taken hold of your truth, and you have appointed me as a father to the children of mercy, and as a guardian to the men of portent. They open the mouth wide like a nursing child. And then it breaks off, and then it says, and as a child delights in the embrace of its guardian. And that's it. There's no milk in there. There's no meat in there.
What?
Terms that Carrier specifically flagged with quotation marks in order to make his point of connecting this particular Dead Sea Scrolls to this passage in the New Testament. So again, is this a mistake of an error of fact that he's using, not even a translation, a paraphrase, an English paraphrase of an English translation of a Hebrew text, and he keys in on words that aren't even there, sets them in quotation marks. Imagine using a paraphrasing as a source. Yeah. So,
yep.
Simple ignorance of scholarship on major points of history. Jewish Relations, post 130, Talmud History of Interpretation, Christian Influence on the Talmud. Simone outlines all of this in her blog. These are significant errors of fact within Carrier's work. And I'll raise this question again. Is Carrier's continued ignorance? I mean, he wrote OHJ in 2012. He's been told for years now by people have been telling him, you really should learn some Hebrew and some Aramaic before you start going down this, before you start tracking down these texts, because you're doing it wrong. And a lot of the times your translations and your understanding of the language, it's just patently, the fact that you don't understand the language is just patently obvious, and it's affecting the quality of your argumentation. So it's not like he doesn't know, and it's not like he hasn't had opportunities to learn Hebrew and Aramaic. He just doesn't know them. Is that an error of fact? Is that a serious problem with this endeavor?
Kip, remember that he reads people who understand the language.
But he's attempting to make arguments on the basis of what they've said, and oftentimes we'll key in on terms that they have noted in their discussions of texts, which aren't actually part of the texts, right? You know, similar to what Price is doing. He doesn't even know that those words aren't in there. So it just, you can't do scholarship in early, you just flatly at this level, you cannot do scholarship in early Judaism if you do not read Hebrew and Aramaic. Straight up, you can't do it. It is beyond you. You can't make arguments about it because you can't read the texts. That's so when Carrier says that no one was able to find any errors of fact in it, and if he hasn't changed anything if nothing substantial has changed in his view from his background knowledge, then I'm like, well, what are you doing? And how do you not see that these are things that have been pointed out to you in the past as serious problems? Why are you, if you're not addressing those, then those look like errors of fact to me.
Hey, maybe if nothing changed since his first book, he's still making bad arguments and quoting sources he can't read or understand or verify. Maybe that's why they said he's not contributing anything to the field.
Could that be it? Right? And at that point, maybe we'll go on to the next clip, because here is where they actually cite a section from this is all we have from the reviewer's reports beyond Carrier's interpretation of them. So this is a paragraph from one of the concluding comments of the reviewer.
I was going to read it, just a spot, if you don't
care.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's the end of one of them, and it's like it stands out. Like, it clearly doesn't sound like they're interested in coaching or giving encouraging like critique. Yeah, they're done with you from the first sentence of this entire thing. Yeah. And this is the last sentence, or the last paragraph. It is nothing new to critique earlier trends in historical Jesus research, such as criteria of authenticity, older views of orality studies, treating John as an independent witness, taking polemical and theological texts like Gospels or Acts at face value, etc. This is what historical Jesus researchers do all the time. I can hear the tone, right? In fact, they've done it much more carefully and critiqued much more harshly and aptly than this book has.
Correct.
His dramatic reading is actually not bad. It's not as good as yours, Vish, but it's
not as good as mine.
It's all right.
Right. But also, yes, critical scholars have in fact read the text and don't take them at face value because they know they're polemical. So, correct. So far, he hasn't said anything that's not correct. So he just doesn't like it. But
they don't jump from finding a flaw in a method or noticing previously unnoticed presumptions or realizing that sections of the Gospels are fabricated all the way to therefore Jesus didn't exist, which is so
correct. Again, that is actually, they don't do that. Again.
Yeah.
what's
So
wrong with
they're going to
this
make they're
so
going
far?
to make the point here that that's not what Richard is doing, and that the reviewers have misunderstood. So,
okay.
but we don't, and
Okay.
we don't know, Vish. Like, we haven't seen the book, so and this is
Mhm.
it, right? We don't know, and this is part of it, but this isn't really. It's the stuff at the end that I really wanted to set
Okay.
our focus on. So, we'll just let it go.
Not tracking what you're saying. You're not saying,
Okay.
"Oh, I found a
It's
fictional."
not my argument. No,
Yeah.
they're not correctly describing
I
it.
found fictional pericopes, therefore he didn't exist. Like, it's far more elaborate than this.
It's not the argument. It's not in the book. Yeah,
Right.
Right.
Finding flaws in previous Jesus research is not the gotcha this book thinks it is. Our historical evidence for Caesar Augustus, Judah the Maccabee, Queen Salome, Alexandra, Peter, or Beruria are all biased, embellished, imperfect, derivative, trope-laden, and polemical too. This doesn't mean the figures didn't exist. Heck, there are millions of ancient people we don't have any evidence for at all. They too existed. The whole idea of the book is anachronistic at best and anti-Jewish at worst. That's an accusation.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, child. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this, because if there is something I am not surprised an anti-theist mythicist goes into, is anti-Semitism. I wouldn't be shocked
Now,
at all.
So let's finish it up, and then we'll talk a little bit about that.
And again, I'm not accusing him. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. This is very well-trodden territory for them. But yeah, big up Ruria. I'm also curious about Aaron Adair's reaction there, because he looked a little bit
I don't know.
anyway. Okay.
And because in order to posit that Jesus didn't exist, it's necessary to be completely ignorant of Second Temple Jewish concerns, apocalyptic Judaism, the Jewish tensions, and ups and downs from the Maccabees to the Herods, all of which make Jesus A, make perfect sense, so much as B, be almost boring. The effort is wrong-headed and quixotic.
Chaotic.
Chaotic. That's it. All right. So I'm going to.
Don Quixote.
I went to the trouble
can't.
of typing this out. I should probably zoom in on that. So this is
Yes,
what they wrote.
Go up to the drop down a little bit left.
On my.
Yes, go down right below there.
Oh, there it is.
Down.
Yeah. Zoom.
Yeah, and go to like
200%.
150 or 200. Yeah.
Let's go to 200.
Yeah,
How's that?
that's good. Excellent.
So here, yeah, it is, and this is what I really wanted to focus on. Okay. The whole idea of the book is anachronistic at best and anti-Jewish at worst. And because in order to posit that Jesus didn't exist, it's necessary to be completely ignorant of Second Temple Jewish concerns, apocalyptic Judaism, the Jewish tensions and ups and downs from the Maccabees to the Herods, all of which make perfect sense, so much as to be almost boring. The effort is wrong-headed and chaotic. This is devastating.
Yeah.
Criticism.
If somebody wrote that for one of my, I would just crawl under a rock. I would
kind of
public again.
surprises me that he doesn't recognize how damning this is.
Because this is the same exact thing that young earth creationists do when they get criticized on their work or their arguments, because everything they do is ad hoc, right? If they think they can prove one thing wrong in all of biology, just one thing, then all of evolution crumples like a house of cards, and haha, I got you, stupid atheist. This is the thing that they're alluding to. Just because you find that, like, scroll up just a little on this, please.
Okay, right.
A little more. Yeah, here we go. So all these historical figures, they're talking about Judah the Maccabee, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, they're biased, embellished, imperfect, derivative, trope-laden, and polemical. Sure, because that's a lot of how ancient history used to be written. A lot of it was hagiography, and like they would mythologize their leaders and things like that. Sure, and we acknowledge this, and it doesn't mean they don't exist.
Yes.
And there are millions of ancient people, again, and the other people have said this in other contexts. There's millions of people that existed, and we don't have evidence for them because they just lived average lives, like whatever. So
yeah,
the arguments that Carrier makes just they're nonsense.
So, and just in
Wow.
terms of trying to understand what the reviewers are getting at. We have nobody's seen the book yet, so I'm not sure exactly what they're keying in on. However, this sentence to me in particular, the whole idea of the book is anachronistic at best and anti-Jewish at worst. Anachronistic, like that's a word that sticks out to me as someone who has read on the Historicity of Jesus, right? Someone who is, working within Second Temple Jewish literature. One of the things that I see is that Carrier has a dependency on ideas that are old, that are outdated.
Yeah.
He'll cite scholars. Like, this is one of the things that's kind of wild here. He says, in order to posit that Jesus didn't exist, it's necessary to be completely ignorant of Second Temple Jewish concerns. Apocalyptic Judaism. One of the wild things to me about reading Carrier's book, the first time, this book about Messianism in early Judaism, John Collins's The Scepter and the Star does not appear in his bibliography. This is a book that was written in 1995. It is the standard work on Jewish Messianism, and it was revised and updated in 2010. So it just within the bracket of time that Carrier published OH it's glaring that it doesn't even appear in the bibliography. Like, what are your sources for Jewish Messianism if you're not reading John Collins? Like, that's a critical error. If you're doing anything in Messianic thought and history in early Judaism, that it's you have to read it. You have to deal with it. It's
and he doesn't.
It's like,
because every time we check his sources and check the things that he says that he's referencing, he does not understand the primary language. He does not understand the point that the people who are writing these texts are trying to make. And then he takes much later ideas after Christianity has taken more of a solid shape, and he just back imprints it onto these older texts. Like, when I was quibbling about his use of the Christ, that's anachronistic.
Yes.
They wouldn't have said Christ or Christos or any other like Greco-Roman like wordage there. They would have used Mashiach. And that concept has snowballed. Okay. Lots of different things have accreted to that over the centuries. So you have to strip away later ideas in order to get at what like earlier texts are trying to tell you. These are post-exilic texts that develop specifically because they're being occupied by imperial powers. They want someone to deliver them so that they can run their own shit again, right? And then you get the Herodian dynasty and they're like, okay, these guys suck. They're not helping us. They're not like actually doing stuff for us. They're just like allying with power and getting rich off of it. So then your idea of what a Messiah is changes. Because then your hierarchy that you thought was going to be your own people, like working on your behalf, they're not doing that. So then your Messiah has to free you, not just from the occupiers, but it also has to address the shitty monarchy that's in place. I get so frustrated. I get so frustrated.
Thank you for the $10, Jason. I will try to find the reference for the VSO, the verb, subject, object stuff. But the idea is that while English is explicitly SVO, if it's not wrong, is it though? I mean, there are plenty of instances where you can where word order does not determine the subject and the object in English. Hebrew is not VSO in that way, and that is true. Yes, that's correct. However, this Hebrew is conventionally verb, subject, object, unless there's reason to think it's not. There are plenty of instances where it doesn't, it doesn't follow the same convention in Hebrew. But the point I was making with regards to 4Q 285 is this is not one of these instances. It's got to be VSO in 4Q 285. And when you get a strong enough grasp of Hebrew, you start to see that. So it's one of these cases where yeah, it works. You're not wrong. But you're also the point that you're making doesn't apply to the fragment in question. So yeah, but thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. So okay. Now I wanted to why do I there we
I need
go.
to, you know what?
I
let
just
me
had a
finish my
brain
thought.
fart
When you're
and-
talking
yes,
about,
sorry.
that's fine. Just, I want to make sure I finish the thought because I don't want people to like take away the wrong conclusion here.
Yeah.
Initially, the idea of Messiah is temporal, right? Because your threats are temporal. You don't need a Messiah for things that aren't threatening you. So it starts out with, oh, the occupiers who change. Then it's, oh, now we have to tack on the freaking like Herodians on top of that, the Hasmoneans and all these other like shitty rulers. And then none of that ends up working. All of the people that led rebellions and like uprisings, none of those were successful. And then all of a sudden you have another rebellion, another uprising, and then all of a sudden Rome's like, all right, that's it, we're done. Flatten the shit and get the hell out. Right? So then you're like, oh, we're not even really living in this location anymore. So then you have to renegotiate the package of ideas that comes with Messiah. Because now you're living out in the rest of the world. So then it has to be a much bigger scale of job that Messiah has to do. Right? These are just like the logical progressions of people renegotiating their traditions in light of historical developments. Carey doesn't know or care about that. He's like, well, Jesus kind of rhymes with some other stuff in other cultures. So, I mean, he was just an accreted bunch of legends packaged together. Like, no, guy, no. Literally, they weren't. This is not how Jesus came about. When you understand literally anything about the Hellenistic period, the Roman occupation, the politics on the ground, Jesus makes complete sense. And like the reviewer saying, like, yeah, he's actually kind of boring in that context. He's just one of many people who were said to be Messiah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, like, the only reason people remember him is because this massive cult followed him and then later gained state power. So it is, it just makes me want to freaking scream.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So I want to qualify some of this. Like you can, it's probably important to point out that calling a work anti-Jewish, like you can promote anti-Jewish ideas without even knowing it.
Yes.
And
yes.
And so I want to make clear that I don't think I'm not making an accusation. I don't think the reviewers are necessarily making an accusation about Richard Carey and suggesting that he's anti-Semitic. They're suggesting that the way in which you caricatured Judaism is anti-Semitic, whether you know it or not.
Well, they didn't say anti-Semitic.
They said anti-Jewish,
which
correct.
To me
Yes.
is they're trying to say anti-Judaism, which
Yes.
is very common in Christian scholarship. So
yeah,
that's something that I do try to make a distinction between, because when you're talking about anti-Jewish texts, that's a different argument than saying that they're doing Judenhass, right, or Jew hate. And there are ways to repeat and promote those ideas without you yourself knowing that you're doing it, which happens. If someone informs you, hey, did you know that quoting the story this way is upholding the polemic version of this story? Please don't do that because it was written intentionally to make Jews look like XYZ. So Yeah, David is saying, isn't the New Testament heavily anti-Jewish? It is. There's
Yes.
only some parts of it that are actively
Even
anti-Semitic, but
even
overall it
though
is anti-Jewish.
even
some
though
places, so.
good, I believe good chunks of the text, I think Paul was Jewish, and yet
Yeah, and I'm like,
he engaged
and yet,
in
yeah,
in anti-Jewish
anti-Jewish
rhetoric,
rhetoric.
right? Like it
Right.
just
But
it's so
What-
now
well, what I was going to say about this review, just real quick, is
Mhm.
usually when I see people talking about anti-Jewish aspects of, like, say, the New Testament or the Gospels, usually that comes out of somebody making arguments that, hey, me, a Christian scholar, or hey, Christians broadly understand Jewish texts or philosophies better than Jews do. That's usually where I see that coming out of. And what might possibly, not definitely, but what might be happening in the work that they reviewed is that Carrier's trying to say that he actually understands what's going on, but the people who wrote the texts at the time didn't. And that is anti-Jewish, because you're not going to get out here and tell people they don't understand what their own texts mean. That's BS.
And this
They
is
wrote
so
it.
this has been noticed by a number of people, right? It feels like it seems like oftentimes Carrier is reading Judaism through this lens of the New Testament, through evangelical Christianity a lot of times. And the reason for that, I think, is because of this. I mentioned this a little while earlier when I talked about how when you're in the field, when you're in the guild, you start to recognize that within, that books published by Erdmans, some of them are good and some of them are not, because of this problem of the fuzzy boundary between the two, right? I think Carrier doesn't recognize that, and as a result, he doesn't know it because he's not in the field, and as a result, what ends up happening is his sources for Jewish messianism in the first century are like Stanley Porter and Craig Evans and Martin Hegel, who are all fine scholars, Protestant Christian evangelical scholars, and he somehow managed to completely ignore John Collins and Michael Segal. Like it.
You mean the not biased theologically sources scholars?
Yeah. So or at least providing a non-Christian perspective of Judaism. So Margaret Barker cites articles from evangelical theological journals. So it's and I think it's because he doesn't understand the difference. And so he looks at it all like it's all the same thing. And if you're going to do that, then of course you're going to see major problems with the discipline as being overrun by Christian theology. If half the things you're reading is Christian theology,
and then a subset specifically of like evangelical Christian theology.
But scholars within the field understand the difference. We get it. We know. And it's not that hard even. Like there's plenty of very bright lay people and enthusiasts who know this, who can read this stuff and go and understand when they're reading theology versus when they're reading scholarship, biblical scholarship, right? Yeah. So okay, let's go to, I think, is it there's one more thing I wanted to, there's a couple more clips, but I think we'll skip those and just go to the last one. Well, actually, yeah, maybe let's look at them quickly. Please don't stop them.
I will.
So let's do the next two quickly, and then we'll get to the third one, and then I'll say some things official.
Reviewers, the reports everyone here has read illustrates this point that this is gatekeeping. It is not legitimate. like scholarly peer review, right? So that was my impression, because this is just bullshit. Wow, I mean, it seems like, well, the field is just gone now. Like, you can't. There's no respectable standard left, and I think it was caused by my publication. I think it really, like I said, set all hands on deck. Like, everybody, okay, we have to stop this now. This shouldn't have happened, right? We shouldn't have allowed this in the first place. And so they're like pulling all the levers of power, including threatening my original publisher about that. So like that's definitely absolutely happening.
All right, pause it for a
In
sec.
this field, the dry.
Told me not to pause it.
I don't know, but we could pause it. I just wanted to say that sort of gets to just what we were talking about. He's got this impression of the field that I think is deeply informed by his failure to recognize that, you know, we can tell who the biblical scholars and the theologians are, and what they're writing and what they're doing, and so it's not like it's just this biased cesspool. All right, next one. Without interruption.
They gatekeep because they know what the hell they're talking about, Richard. That's part of the freaking function of the academy. Oh my God.
The driver of the false negative rate and the false positive rate, the driver of the corruption of peer review is Christianity. Even if it's not Christian specifically, it's them working through, like, trying to persuade secular scholars to do certain things, not say certain things, say certain things, and so on. So that you're basically creating this panopticon where a secular scholar can't say a certain thing. They just feel that this will cause problems for me. It'll cost a lot of emotional labor, right? Like, and I've actually, I ran into this. This was with, I ran into the actual scholars with this, where in private they say, like, you know what, that would cause so much grief for me. I'm just not gonna go there, right? And it's not that they necessarily fear that they're gonna be fired. Some do, actually. I've had them tell me that. And it's not necessarily that they fear whatever else. But even though they do, like, they can fear it even though the threat isn't there. So it doesn't matter that maybe you're completely immune to being fired. But if you think you aren't, if you fear it, that's enough. But it doesn't even matter, because it's the emotional labor of having to deal with all the drama of the people secretly behind you, pressuring you, arguing with you. Mm-hmm. Basically, it amounts to harassment, right? So you're basically going to be harassed by your own colleagues and friends if you stand up for a thing. So it's just, even though you believe in the thing, you're just not going to do it. Like, you're going to talk about something else. It's just too much work. It's too much emotional labor to go there. So I'm just not going to go there. And so you create this sort of phenomenon in the field that molds things in the interests of the Christian party, essentially, right? So, this field is definitely captured that way.
There are like thousands upon thousands of Jewish scholars in the field. Mm-hmm. Are they just going to go along with that fish?
No, we're famous for not doing what we're told.
Yeah. So this idea of Christian capture, and I have made this point before, right? Yes, the field is majority confessional. Most people, the vast majority of people, are Christians or observant Jews. That doesn't mean they're all fundamentalist evangelicals. Far from it. Or, you know, what that means is that, and it stands to reason, the people who have an interest in the Bible are usually those people who are reading it, who were reading it in church from the time they were kids, you know, like myself. But there are, and this is where I don't understand the logic here, because within current New Testament studies, you have scholars publishing work that have basically stripped Jesus down to a guy about whom we can't really know anything beyond the fact that he was executed and crucified for Roman sedition, got himself in trouble with the Jewish temple establishment. Like that's what's left. I don't understand why anyone would think that that's like everyone's totally fine with that, but then going to a completely mythical Jesus is just a step too far. Like, it just that makes no sense. It just doesn't. when effectively the Jesus that is under investigation and exploration within critical scholarship was an ordinary man about whom everybody pretty much acknowledges we don't know very much. Like it's not, maybe that's the part of the comment by the reviewer. This is not the gotcha you think it is. It's so it's anyways,
It's just one of those, I'm like, look, congrats, you realize that Christian hegemony exists. Good job. Everyone else has reached that conclusion a long ass time ago.
Exactly.
What battle are you fighting, my guy?
And I'm not saying
all freaking, again, like you said, they're not all freaking biblical literist, young earth creationist evangelical Christians. That's absurd. So not only is he going, well, all of their scholarship's worthless because they're biased, he's also throwing out all of the non-Christian scholars. And the gall of somebody to do that is just not surprising, but it just really makes me want to scream into the sky. The arrogance of that.
Yeah. And then to think that your work that nobody paid attention to or cited or interacted with caused this incredible shift, which basically broke
okay.
broke
you are
peer
not
review
that
in the
important
field. So
Rich, you are not that important. When I'm in mixed company and people know who you are, it is not a positive thing. They're not like, oh my god, I love Richard Gates. They're like, that hack, is he still arguing for mythicism? It is not positive. And his method of cope is, well, they're just all wrong and they don't understand me and they're fake biased secret Christians anyway. Cope.
This exactly right. Carrie seems to think that everyone in the field is going to bat for Christianity, which would implicate me, says Simone. And I want to
Simone, famously a Jew.
So Jason Rollins, most biblical scholars, and yes, it's true. I think probably most biblical scholars are Christians. Most biblical scholars think that the resurrection is historical, don't they? I think this depends very much on what you mean by resurrection and by historical. Even among Christian scholars, and I have no way to answer this question because I can't know what most people think in this regard when it comes to matters of confession and faith. But I can share some anecdotal. I'm getting after people for sharing anecdotal stuff all the time, but I'll tell you this: I did my PhD work with under George J. Brooke, who is I believe has clergy status in the Anglican Church. His wife is Anglican clergy. They're very good friends, and my one time, but didn't end up being one of my readers for my my PhD dissertation was supposed to be Philip Alexander before he got way too busy, and I had to find someone else. But Philip Alexander and his wife Lovejoy are both biblical scholars, and also confessional Anglicans. And I spent a lot of time with these people on a social level, and I can tell you that none of them are going to jump forward and state that the resurrection was an historical reality in the way that people tend to understand it. This is a way that they negotiate their faith in their own way. I did for a long time. For a long time, while I was still a confessing Christian, I would have said that exactly. I think it depends very much on what you mean by resurrection and historical. I have ways of negotiating that whole piece that still work within my scholarship, even though I maintain that there's no good evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, no good historical evidence for it. I could do that.
Not we being me personally, but are we as a general? Are we sure that we want them to think that it's historical? Because if it's historical, like as in a matter of history, then you don't actually need faith to believe it, which I'm suspicious that especially evangelicals would want to commit to, because a big part of their whole shtick is faith for things that don't have like traditional evidence for them. So
yep. So okay, so there's
like
one.
Most people that are evangelical Christians, or even Christians that believe in the resurrection, most of them don't come to those conclusions based on like evidence. It's usually because of a personal experience that they attribute to, supernatural interaction or Jesus or whatever.
I believe that is often the case. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't really think they think about it as being historical, because to them it's as real as if it really happened. Because isn't that what Low Bar Bill says? He's like, oh, I know it's true, not because there's evidence, silly. Oh, it's because the Holy Spirit within me testifies that it's true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. So in this last clip, I included this last clip because something that that Carrier is fond of doing is invoking the incident with Thomas Thompson that happened in the late 70s, I believe, as analogous to what's happening to him now. And I every time this comes up, I feel like there's always important correction that needs to be made.
Now, of course, a lot of Old Testament scholars, especially oldies, know the Thomas Thompson affair. And there's a lot of people who have like revisionist history versions of what happened, but there are some who are like telling the truth about what really
Pause it for a second, though.
It's very similar to what's happening to me.
I'm fairly sure that when he says people have revisionist history versions of it, he's talking about me.
Huh? No. Don't you feel like you've been wounded?
Yeah.
You're taking damage.
In that regard. So the only difference is that I found a way to make money without depending on the industry, so that they couldn't punish me.
Maybe you shouldn't tell on yourself like that, Richard.
Ouch.
The way they punish Thompson. I'm immune to their levers of influence and power. And that pisses them off.
Really? The levers of power and influence. Are we talking about big Christianity? Are we talking about big resurrection or big historicity? Is that what we're going with here? Levers of power. I'm gonna breathe. It's fine.
That literally angers them, and so they look for any opportunity to gatekeep me and keep me out of the guild, essentially. And
that's not important.
And we have
you're not that important.
So
he's not okay. So that's it. We can.
He's just not that important. Most people don't think of him. So yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's important that people understand what happened to Thomas Thompson, and I think it's important that people understand the dramatic differences between what happened to Thomas Thompson and what is happening. I don't understand this, so.
He's talking about Carrie's like he's out here fighting the crypto-Christian archons. Like he's in some kind of like spiritual battle in Gnosticism or whatever, fighting the archons.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So Thomas Thompson was a PhD student at I believe it was the University of Tübingen in Germany. In Germany and Belgium, I think maybe Switzerland as well. It's still very much the case in a lot of places. Your biblical studies department is in a department of theology. In the German system, when you are doing when you register as a student in a theology department or a biblical studies department, you have to declare either for the Protestant school or for the Catholic school. Thomas declared for the Catholic school, so he was part of that group, right? He wrote an excellent dissertation for his PhD, in which he promoted a strong critique of the old biblical archaeology paradigm, and showed how it was, basically built on thin air, in terms of how they evaluate evidence for things like the patriarchs. The patriarchs didn't exist, was a big feature in his dissertation, which dealt with archaeology and its interaction with texts and with modern scholarship. Very, very good. Very good. It was recognized the moment the moment people saw it, that it was very good. He could not get it passed, however, because it was blocked by one of the professors, who was, I believe, also a dean at the school, by the name of Joseph Ratzinger. Do you know Joseph Ratzinger?
Joseph Ratzinger? Who
Joseph
later went on to
Ratzinger,
become Pope Palpatine?
Pope Benedict the 16th. Same guy. Hey, Joel. Good to see you. We were talking about you earlier. So Pope Palpatine had problems with the dissertation that Thompson wrote, blocked his ability to pass, and caused all sorts of problems for Thompson over the course of the next several years. Thompson managed to find some occasional teaching in a variety of university departments, particularly in I think in the southern U.S. I'm pretty sure it was at Vanderbilt for a couple of years doing some adjunct work.
Oh,
But
dang.
he also, like, he he painted houses, and he worked as a janitor because he couldn't get work because he ran afoul the Pope, essentially.
Future.
The future Pope. Yes, this is all prior to when Ratzinger became the Pope. He was still just Cardinal Ratzinger back at that time. So and this is a very important point that Lawrence brings up. Thomas Thompson and Van Seers really changed the field in the 1970s. Their ideas didn't get much traction until the 1990s, but still, something else that needs to be noted here is that when Thompson wrote his PhD dissertation, it got published right away too. That's the other thing. Even though he couldn't get it passed through the school, he managed to get it published because it was that good.
Nice.
Everyone in the field recognized that it was that good. It was widely, very positively reviewed for years while he struggled to find work, and while he was ostracized because of running afoul Pope Palpatine. He continued to get support from his peers in the field. This is and Van Seers. Sorry, yes. Van Seers is important to this whole situation as well, because John Van Seers was an excellent biblical scholar at the University of Toronto here in Canada. And right around, like, within a year or two, it was very close to around the same time, he was doing the same work that Thomas Thompson was doing independently of Thomas Thompson, and published a book that came out very close to the same time that Thompson's book came out, which made the same arguments, and continued to teach and to publish, and was not at all affected by publishing this work in the field. So for Thomas Thompson, his problem was not that he was making these arguments that were, yes, absolutely ground shifting And as Lawrence pointed out, it took some time for them to gain traction and to really become the standard within scholarship. But it's not like scholars looked at this and didn't recognize what was going on. It just takes some time. So his problem was not with the guild. I'm going to repeat that. Thompson's problem was not with the guild. It was never with the guild. His problem is that he pissed off one of the most powerful Roman Catholic clergymen on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's an entirely different issue. It
Wasn't
really is.
If there's any knowledgeable people or Roman Catholic experts in here, wasn't Ratzinger head of the Office for the Preservation of the Doctrine of the Faith, or whatever it's called? It used to be the Office of the Inquisition, but they renamed it.
I think so. Yeah, I think he was.
That's why that pissed him off so bad. Because he's not only confessing Christian, but if my memory serves, he was over the office that's like, this is what proper Catholic doctrine is.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yikes.
So I mean, I did want to point out, like, there are absolutely, I like being a biblical scholar. I have had I've been in the field for the better part of 25 years now. I have had great experiences working in the field. I've never felt, I should say, I have almost always never felt like my work was being censored or punished, or I never felt that I suffered for academic freedom. My experience in the field, that's what it is, right? I disagree with my colleagues all the time, and we hang out and we're friends. It's not this draconian place that carry. Vish went to SBL this year. It's pretty fun. So it's not that, but I do want to say too, like, I'm not blind to the issues in our field. I mean, yes, because of the fact that we are scholars of the Bible, the faith is always going to be a problem. The fact that there are lots of very conservative biblical scholars is going to create all sorts of tensions and issues within the guild. The fact that biblical studies presses oftentimes, far too often, will promote or will follow their dollars, and they will make decisions on the basis of where they feel they can get the highest return, which almost always veers towards less critical, more theological, less rigorous, more spiritual sorts of readings and work. These are all problems. It affects peer review, yes, but it's not like we're on critical life support here. There are plenty of people within the guild who recognize exactly what's going on. We're all smart enough to see it. Richard is not seeing things from some vaunted vantage point with some great advantage that the rest of us don't have. That's not what's happening here. I guess what I'm trying to say is there is no conspiracy. There are problems. There's problems in academia, right? There's problems with disappearing funding. There's problems with the fact that humanities departments are dying. There continue to be problems with proper representation of women and minorities, and other perspectives within our field. These are all problems, and I'd like to think that these are things that many of us are sensitive to and trying to address and affix without throwing everything away. So I guess that's that. So I don't know. Are we done? I think we're done.
You tell me.
We don't have
Same
any more super chats. Any other you flagged a few things in here.
Oh, those are just so that I
Anything else?
can
Okay.
like
Sure.
ruminate on them later.
Sure.
It's not stuff that had to be
Just
put
going
out.
back and looking if there's anything
Just
else.
people. I did get 2 responses from Pedro and Eternal Sage, who seems to be someone who just copy pastes Google or Wikipedia in here, which cool. But either way, it is the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, so I was close. Yeah, he wasn't.
Thank you, Eternal Sage.
I don't know if he was a cardinal at the time. He probably was, but I'm going to put this one up there because it was first. He wasn't the head or prefect of that office yet at that time. So.
Yeah. But yeah, so on that last point, right? When mythicists start telling me this is exactly what happened to Thomas Thompson. No, it fucking.
Oh snap!
isn't.
I'm wrong. Hang on,
yeah?
J.K. Lil of all trades for 2 sticks and treats for Kip and Dagan.
Thank you, Lil.
I can't believe
That's so nice.
We missed that one. My bad.
Lil is doing regular stuff on Better Than Ember's channel now, by the way. So in the mornings, I believe.
Okay.
So
Right.
you guys should watch. It's good. Okay, so I think we're done. Tomorrow's Saturday, right?
Yeah. Well, last 3 hours away. Yeah. Okay. You know what? That's fair. That is fair.
I've seen Maya stream for 3 hours before. 4. I think there's a 4-hour one on there somewhere. But yeah.
I'm really, really hungry, and chat decided that I'm making chicky nuggies for dinner. So.
Nice. That's good. I have beef medallions for dinner tonight, which is pretty great. Yeah. So
what
tomorrow,
carbs or starches are you eating with that?
I haven't decided yet. I have to go figure that out now. So tomorrow at noon Pacific, right? The best time zone. We'll be on Dapper Dinosaur's channel. And tomorrow is because it's Saturday, and because it's been 2 Saturdays since we did Budget Scripture Saturday, we'll be on tomorrow night at 7:00 Pacific for another installment of Budget Scripture Saturdays. And then next week on Thursday, there will be Kiryat Tibrit. I am very excited to announce that Rabbi Chana is going to be coming and reading with me, with us.
I messaged her like right after the stream was done last week. I was like, "Why aren't you reading on this stream? You need to be in there to like do
right."
So.
I didn't even think about it. I feel bad that I didn't even think about it. But yeah, I'm super excited that she'll be coming to join us on Thursday. So good. All right. We're gonna get out of here. Thanks for that. Not what my mouth. We're going to get out of here. Thanks everyone for coming and hanging out and listening to me prattle on about this. And I guess until tomorrow, right? Ha tikva.